All right. So we got that all going. Let me scooch this down a little bit. All right. We'll wait and see who's on. Dun, da, da. It says 10 people.
Hey.
Can anybody hear us? Because there's a delay too, like in the audio and
Uh,
everything.
yeah.
Even if you choose minimal delay, there's still like 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, I've never done anything live like YouTube or anything. I've always just uploaded and that's it.
I used to do them quite a bit when uh, I would do LS1 Tech questions.
Oh
You ever
boy.
see any of those?
Oh yeah.
All
Yep.
right. Oh, he says
Yeah.
loud and clear. So yeah, I would have a rum and coke or two and answer LS1 Tech questions.
Man, I lived off LS1 Tech back in the day.
Yeah,
That was like the holy grail.
they made me a customary moderator. That was so funny. I believe I still am. I'm like the most dysfunctional moderator ever.
Yeah, I haven't been on there in a long time.
All right. Well, I guess we'll introduce you quick. You are Matt Moore of, what is it, Moore Race Chassis.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And you do chassis work, which I'm very
Yep.
fascinated in hearing about. And so you own Moore Race Chassis. So
Yep.
I guess you could explain like primarily what you do and everything else, and man, just summarize it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I've been doing this full time for 3 years now. Um, and then before that, I did it for I don't know, probably 3 years before that. Um, kind of started off in my garage. I got a 98 Camaro way back in high school. And like we were talking about, LS1 Tech, that was like the holy grail. Um, and originally, I actually, that's how I knew you was from that time. From, I had minimal amounts of money. So I was like trying to make do. And so that's kind of where the fab stuff started. I did drag week with that car, and it was low budget, and it went like 970s, and so I went to college, kind of got kind of went through college, did a couple buddies' cars, and a couple buddies after that, and it kept spiraling, and now we're here, and we just expanded our building again. So we pretty much do anything chassis related, drag racing specifically. We don't really do much else like road racing, drifting. I guess it is primarily drag racing related. So, but yeah, 3 years. We do a lot of Fox body stuff, which is kind of
Of
it's
course.
yeah, it's funny because I mean, there's no like specialty. I didn't specifically get into it just to do that, but now we have chassis, roll cage kits that we send out to people. We have everything for uh, second gen, first gen S10s, basically every year a Mustang. Um, what else? That's about it. We also do welded chassis, so that's kind of our new niche, I guess. They're basically a full chassis. We have a jig car set up. We build the chassis in the car, and then it's pulled off of the shell is pulled off of the chassis, and then we send out that chassis. So the customer basically cuts the floor out, and they can slide the shell over. Yep.
Well, that's nice.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. We'd always kind of planned it out to do something like that, and it kind of came full circle. We did a car, and we were like, hey, why don't we just try taking the body off and we'll see what happens. So that's kind of where that spiraled from. So
I used to
I guess
always think, like, how do people get a cage that tight in a car? And I remember
yeah,
asking my buddy Frank in like 2003, 2004, I'm like, how the hell do you do that? And he's like,
yeah,
you cut the floor out and you weld the cage and shove it back in the car. I'm like, really? And
Yeah.
someone else was telling me, even if you just cut, this made more sense too. Uh, the the flat steel that you put in like a regular unibody car to
Yeah.
support the posts, they're like you just cut out the tubing where the tubes go, and you can drop it like 6 inches or whatever to the bars, weld the tops, and bring it back up and put the plates in. And I'm
Yep.
like, oh, see, you guys know that's smart.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually, it's probably been 6 months since we've done just a basic 850 cage. It's been, we've done, I mean, we're basically almost every car's 25.5 plus car. So when we do like a 25.5 or 25.2, if they're leaving like the stock floor in, we'll take our, cut a 6x6 hole in the floor. And like a 25.5, we build it off the rocker. So we'll get like 6x6 plates and weld it to the inside of the rocker. And then we'll build a floor structure. And then we'll usually drop the floor structure completely out, weld it completely, raise it back up, and then build the rest of the cage. And then we'll actually drop the entire assembly again and then weld it all, weld the tops and then raise it back up. So that's kind of if they have the full floor. But if they, if we're cutting the floor out, then we'll usually build the floor outside the car first. Just kind of makes it easier. We have a couple jigs for building floor structures for common cars. So try to make things a little easier, saves us time and saves everyone, customers money when we can do it quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll get fired up on these questions quick.
Yep.
This is a good one. This is always something I have strong feelings about. It says, do you think a street-only car should have a cage?
Oof. I've always, I've tossed this one around in my head a few times throughout the years. There's some cars where, like F-body Camaros, those are really bad about being pretty close to your head, mainly because I had one. And it was, I added some padding to the A-pillar bar when I had that car because I would street drive it and it would be, it's 2 inches away from your head. So I don't know. It's hard because if you go to the track and you need a cage, then you need a cage. But I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't know. What's your opinion on that? That's a tough, it is dangerous. I mean, it's, if you get in a wreck with that and you smack your head on it.
I've seen it happen to people. Like Ocean City's had a few accidents where people were in like a 15-mile-an-hour accident and it killed somebody because they smacked their head on the cage. That's why I never really put cages in anything because I don't race enough. So that's the big thing, right? If you race it enough.
I think that's a determination.
Yeah, that's your goal, right? If your goal is to race it a lot, then you need a cage because it needs to pass tech enough for you to race.
Yeah.
And then I only ever, like, I'll build something and go to the track once or twice. I don't care. Because usually people are like, I just do it for myself. Because I would assume that people are like, that's cool that it makes power and does burnouts, but can it even get out of its own way?
Yeah.
And then, I take my truck on a Friday night and foot brake 970, and I'm like, yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. It's tough. I don't know. I mean, even if you add like roll bar padding to it, like specific, NHRA approved or SFI approved stuff, it's still hard. It's still, I mean, it's not soft padding. I mean, if you get in a wreck and you smack your head on that, it's not going to feel good anyway.
No.
So,
I mean, my Mustang that I'm going to do, I'm going to drop it off at some friends, hopefully the next week or two, and they're going to do, I want a hoop in it in case I lit it at like 170, but I don't really want anything else. And I was going to talk to them because they tie the 4-link into the hoop.
Yeah.
So I don't mind a hoop because it's going to be way behind my head. So I don't care about it being legal. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
And that'll be fine. And I don't even really want door bars at all because it's never going to be legal. I don't care. But I said to them, if it improves chassis rigidity to a point where I should do it, or can I just get away with subframes, or can I get door bars that are retardedly low that conform to the entire seat? I was going to ask them, take liberties and talk me into things. But other than that, I want the minimal amount of everything.
Yeah, I think that it just kind of depends. I mean, box bodies are tin cans anyway, so
yeah.
I mean, it's either you go out on the street, get in a wreck, hit your head, or you go to the track and hit the wall and roll it, and it's still not going to end well. So I don't know. It's kind of a toss up. I mean, I would like fox bodies have plenty of headroom, so if you're strapped in and you actually have the 5-point harness on while you're driving, not just with a lap belt driving, I'd say you're probably fine.
Yeah, I guess that's the issue. All right. Well,
Yeah.
here's another one. It says, given how 8s for 8s chassis was something found on the secondary market, what should I look for in a used race chassis?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, we've cut out some pretty gnarly stuff. I mainly just run your hand over all the welds. I mean, feel the top of every weld that's against the roof. That's mainly where those spots where they don't weld. I mean, I think it's like up to 25% is the allowed number. So I don't know. I have some pictures from pretty gnarly cage we found. Let me see if this works here.
So that's the only thing you should look for in a chassis that's already done is welds, because those are always the worst.
Yeah. So this is some stuff that we I don't know if you can see that or not.
I can see it. Everybody else? I can see it fine, so they can see it. I can see exactly what I'm broadcasting in the other broadcast software.
Okay, yeah, so you can see this notch weld thing.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, so that's one we cut out. This is part of the same cage, so that's kind of the stuff you gotta watch out for.
Oh, do you have pictures of the cage?
Yeah. That's why I was
So I only see the Bentech program. You might have to switch what program you're presenting.
Yeah. Let me see. Here we go.
I'm like, yeah, I see like a double frame rail chassis. Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's
nice. So we cut that out of a car like probably 2 years ago. So just stuff like that. Just watch out for that. I mean, cage design is definitely important. Definitely see if there's like a certification that's been done on the car. If it's expired, it's usually okay. If it's within the past like 5 years, usually okay. If it doesn't have a cert and the car's been fast, then there's probably a reason why it's not certed. I mean, some people don't they won't get it certed, but if it doesn't, I would be leery of that, and just make sure like the cage fits well. There is actually a rule on NHRA, like it has to fit the chassis. It can't be real loose fitting, and so that's just the main stuff to look for, and make sure that there's no cracks, and just make sure the welds are pretty solid.
Yeah, I would say, as I say with anything, you should just try to get the most complete vehicle for your money to do what you want with it.
Yeah, that's what I would. That's really the best thing. Just kind of your gut instinct on it. If you're getting weird, if they're telling you weird stuff, then it's probably sketchy.
All right, this guy says, TIG welding stainless, which tungsten, which filler rod, and any recommendations? And are you back purging, and why?
So we use 2% lanthanated for pretty much everything. It's easier for us. It's maybe in like a home setting you can play with different tungstens and stuff. We just have so many tungsten in little bowls on our welder that if we had 3 different types of tungsten, that they would all get mixed up together. So we kind of picked a middle ground. So it's 2% lanthanated on that. Then filler, I think it's a 308 filler. I usually use like 035 wire, so it's pretty small stuff, but you don't need a ton when you're TIG welding stainless. Kind of just little dabs. You don't need a lot of buildup on it, as long as you're getting good penetration on it. And that kind of leads into back purging. We back purge pretty much everything. Headers, turbo kits, everything like that gets all back purged. And then just make sure that your welds are actually penetrating through the stainless and not just hanging out on top, because that'll lead to cracks. It's a lot of heat to be putting through tubing. So it's kind of just stuff to watch out for. There's some things will crack eventually. I mean, especially stuff that gets ran, say on a daily driver or something. That stuff gets used. It gets warm. It's something. It can happen. It can crack. But
someone has a question. I don't know about the background of this. He says, I want to know about Matt's favorite chassis, the S10, specifically the one he built for Motion. Was that rack and pinion a kit?
Yes, that was from Innovative, I think, out of Florida, Innovative Racecraft. I believe that was their K member. That was a pretty cool build. It was it's cool to build stuff for other companies rather than customers. It's a pretty neat build. It was fun. It was a good time. They came down here and we hung out, went to lunch and stuff. So that was a good time. I'm actually excited to see that car run, that Blazer run. I don't think they don't have it running yet, but it'll be cool when it runs.
That's one of my biggest gripes with the Chevy platforms. When people ask me why don't I use them, is the tractor size steering box and the A-arms that take up most of the engine bay, and all the HVAC thing that almost goes to the front of the car, and I could go on and on. I'm like, you
gotta spend a lot of money on like those type trucks. I mean, you basically have to open a TRZ catalog and buy everything
Meanwhile,
some people
get Fox, like, you can add pool noodles and box some of the stuff, and like I would always do is put children's sports balls of any kind in the right rear spring. And the cars would just go. I would have the stock 1980. People are like, man, what spring and shock package? I'm like, completely rotted 1982 stock shocks. They're fantastic. They're so blown that they hook and go really well.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of people switching to like S10 stuff now, like leaf spring S10s. The weight bias on them is good. Like they're known for, pulling the wheels on like a radial track, but if you're doing no prep stuff, then that's what you want. You want that weight going back. So a lot of guys been going to S10s and doing really well with them.
Another one, I'm interested in this too, like I was just talking about. Yeti Speed here says, just how necessary are subframe connectors in a Fox body platform?
I would say if you don't have a cage, then you should probably get something. If you don't and you start making a lot of power, you can see the wrinkles in the floor, especially on the rocker panels on the inside. They'll start getting wavy, and it's actually the rear end trying to climb over the rest of the car and fold it up. So I would say at least subframe connectors, something, just something along that line.
They are a tin can.
Oh yeah. We our shop car that we're building, we actually cut out about as much weight as you can get out of one, and the shell by itself weighed 200 pounds. So that was it. That was front frame rails. That was still, stock firewall, quarters, roof. Yeah, so they're light. They're you gotta be real careful with them when you're moving them around when you start cutting everything out.
Yeah, that's what I like when guys talk about making their Honda Civic light. They're like, "Oh, I got all the interior out," and I'm like, "What did that weigh? 8 pounds? That shit's cardboard. It's cardboard with fabric on it."
Yeah. We went around on the shop car and cut all the roof like support panels out. So it's going to be interesting to see what it weighs.
This is a good one. It says, when are they giving away a fully welded Fox 25.3 cage?
Oh man, that'd be a good one. It'd be expensive though. It'd be expensive giveaway.
If we could get someone to buy it from you and then you could give it away, that'd be nice. They could write it off and then you could do a thing.
Yeah.
We'll talk to some people. No.
Yeah. See, everyone's got to go subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then we'll, start
that should be
giving away stuff on there.
Oh, Mark says, where did you get pictures of my cage when you posted the awful cage?
Dude, that's about the the worst one that we've seen. That one's I actually have a let me see. I have another one of that cage. It's yeah, that one's the best. That one's a good one. That's a good picture.
Nice. It looks like they ground it down nice.
Yeah. Man, we cut that out and I was like, oh boy.
All of it's got to come out now, I guess.
Yeah. It's once it's at that point, it's pretty well pretty done. So that's the stuff you gotta watch out for. That'll kill someone pretty quick. So
Mark also says, I'm very interested in the 850 kits you guys sell for Fox Mustangs.
Oh yeah. Yep. They've been we've slowed down a little through the summer, which I kind of expected. We've been selling the kits for right at a year now, so they've slowed down a little bit. But last winter was madness, and there's only 3 of us, so it's me and I have 2 employees. So it's we were busy. We're still busy. We're booked out like 8 months on custom work, and then we have all the welded chassis and then the cage kits. So it's wild right now. It's a wild time.
Here's a good one. It says tube steel versus round tube for frame rails.
I guess he means like square tube.
I think that's I as soon as I read that, I'm like, did I read that wrong, or did he say tube for both?
I would do if that's what he's asking about, square or round. I would do round. Square tube, you can only go so far with it chassis wise. I actually think a 25-3 doesn't allow square tube on any of like the inner or outer frame rails.
I can't say I've ever seen square on any serious race car, so I would
think
no.
Unless it's from like the 1970s and it's been back half by S&W or something.
Another one here is RCSB half-ton pickups, first and second mods to get power to the ground.
Pickup trucks?
Yeah, I guess straight from stock. What would you do to get power to the ground?
I'd probably like some type of track, like a traction bar, like a cow track or something like that.
So you don't axle wrap and bust your pinion off.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that would be the first thing. Those things are pretty cheap for what they are. That's probably what I would do first. And then go from there, see how much it handles.
I won't put cars, I won't dyno them with a lot of power anymore without some sort of travel arrestor on a leaf spring car.
Yeah.
Because I've had, I think, 4 of them where we started at lower power, and as I crept up, it definitely it went terminal on the U-joint. And I've learned now that if it's just a leaf, I have to be like, I can shake it down like high 400s. Because I'm like, it's just going to climb till it's terminal and puke the drive shaft out.
Yeah. I would. That's probably first step. And then you can go into split mono leafs and like sliders in the rear. Something like a 417 Motorsports front mount. That's kind of like the general package. If someone's like, we want to put a lot of power through a S10, that's kind of like a not all out package, but still.
So like an adjustable spring perch with multiple holes in the front.
Yeah, I think
a bar of some sort to stop it from. Wrapping, and so when it hits the tire, it pushes into the frame.
Yeah, 401 Motorsports makes a pretty good kit. Usually, if you take like a, I don't know, say a first gen S10, and then if you put a slider on the rear, usually moves it up like an inch from where the stock pivot is in the back. So usually, if you move the rear up an inch, you got to move the front up an inch to get all your geometry back. You can run it, and it'll probably be fine, but to do it right, move both at the same time. So I think 401 Motorsports has like 4 holes in it. So their kit's pretty good.
This is one from Matt Johnson. He says, do you design your chassis in CAD before starting to build it?
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Everything is pretty much put into CAD. Even on cars that we don't have, never done before, it goes into CAD. Just because the repeatability, like if we go in and mess up, I don't know, an A-pillar, we can go in and repeat it pretty quickly. a degree or two added. And I guess that's what I had pulled up earlier. That was the, let me show that. Yeah, so this is our welded chassis that goes out. So this is 100% correct drawn. So the tough part with the CAD stuff is making it correct to the actual car. So if you did this, put it in, and then you made it work in the car and it happened to fit, okay, that's cool. But if you want to repeat it, you need to make sure that that bar is true to what it says in Bentech. So that's kind of the struggle with that, is because you can take an A-pillar, and if this A-pillar is rocked in another 2 inches inside the car, well, all this stuff is now off. So hardest thing is just making it repeatable. So
my wife just jumped in on the chat and she says, "Oh, you're presenting. You are fancy boys."
It's hard to describe this stuff. It's hard to describe like CAD stuff.
No, yeah. When you were like, "I hope I can screen share," I'm like, "Yeah, it allows you to do that very easily." So
yeah. But yeah, this is our complete box body chassis. So this is the one we use for our welded chassis that go out on big pallets. So
all complete.
Yep, welded.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah. So with this one, with the back half, you have to cut out the entire floor of the box body, and then you got to take the rear frame rails out, which most people run. If they're going to run like a stock suspension, they take their frame rails out anyway, because by the time you sit there and cut out all the spot welds on everything, you end up with Swiss cheese and looks awful. So LMR makes a replacement frame rail that you can just cut it out, put in the stock ones, put in the replacement ones, and then you're good to go. And you actually have nice frame rails that aren't rusty, and so it makes it a little easier. And then you can do tubs or whatever. So
someone's asking if they can use fence post. They're just being funny. So here's BK asks what probably 25% of the questions are. So I guess every 30 minutes we'll answer this question, or we'll just generalize. People are asking about anti-squat, and we talked about this right before we went live. And well, you just give your summary for that.
I guess I was saying, telling Matt earlier, that I was reading through some of the comments. It's anti-squat it's a great number to get a baseline off of, but it's 100% dependent on the car, the tire, the power, even how much the car weighs, the weight bias. It all makes a difference. Generally, like anything under 100% is gonna, the rear is gonna squat, and it's gonna be, what you think of like a slick tire car going on the track. Anything over 100 is gonna separate like a radial. So there's not really a one style that's going to cover everything. Like I don't know, I guess like a wiki that's going to tell you what's going to work and what's not.
So yeah, the summary is try something and go from there.
Yeah,
so try 100 maybe if you can level it, and then if it doesn't work, or if you have radial, you go up, and if you have slick, you go down till something starts working.
Yeah, like I mean, it's anything. I mean, even shocks, like you could you get baseline settings for that, and you go out and see what it does, and then go from there. It's pretty much that. There's not a one. I mean, this is kind of a 4-lane calculator that I use. This is actually the shop car that we're working on now. So,
do you have like a calculator app?
Yeah, it's a someone
might
made
not
this.
Be open on our end. I can only see Bentech again.
I think I gotta switch it. Let me switch it quick.
Yeah, someone was just saying, what's the best way to calculate instant center? And I have seen web pages where if you have a 4-link thing, it's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's this Excel file. Someone made this. I don't know exactly who.
That's the one I've seen before.
They made it a long time ago. It's like 2004, but this thing works great, and it's free. So it gives you a lot. You can get lost in the data on this, so don't read too far into it. That's, I guess, the anti-squat's another one of those things where if you read too far into it, you're gonna get lost. So if you're just starting out, just start basic. This was just, I was throwing around bar angles on the shop car just to figure out where where we're going to put stuff to start with.
My buddy Frank had said figuring out instant center, the best summary I've ever heard is he's like, you want your upper and your lower control arm to merge at your butt.
That's about, yeah, because I mean,
He's
look
like,
at,
it's got to be pointing at your butthole. Both
yeah.
bars. Both bars come to a point at your butt, and that's what your instant center should be to start.
Yep, that's a pretty good that's pretty fun because that's the point right there, and that's about where you're sitting.
Yep, that's what a genius he was with
Yeah,
small words, right?
yeah,
I'm like,
yep,
what does
yep,
all that mean? He's like, you want your control arms to point at your butt.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, well, that's
yeah,
easy. He's like, yeah, it is, right?
yep. I mean, you can get real deep into figuring all that stuff out, but I mean, once again, if go to the track and see what it does. That's the only way you're gonna know where it needs to go.
Yeah, that's one of those things, we call it analysis paralysis. People are so concerned about
Yeah,
getting that right that they never put the car on the ground and make a pass.
yeah, yeah. You just have to do it, and I mean, it's like anything racing. You just gotta make passes. That's the only way you're gonna get better. That's the only way you're gonna
Most of the
get.
time, I would say 80% of the time, if you're taking out a fresh car, unless you're a pretty serious driver, it's 80% of it is training yourself to drive the car correctly.
Yeah, especially with something fast.
Because I've seen those videos where a friend of mine like took pro mod school and drives a pro mod and everything, and he said like they would give you a car that drives dead straight, and everybody's
Yeah,
driving them all over the track, and it's
yeah,
because when they launch, it's like for people that do shooting, there's pulling or pushing the gun,
yeah,
so you're
yeah,
anticipating recoil and you're pushing into it, so you're shooting the dirt.
yeah.
So same thing happens. Your body's doing something instinctively, and you're screwing yourself up.
Yep. Yeah. Seat time is the most important thing when it gets to racing. Um, but yeah, this calculator it's pretty good, but you can definitely get lost. Like they have a travel tab where you can set like bump travel
Wow,
and droop travel. I mean, this is a lot. This
that's
is
too much
very
for me. I don't even know what
yeah.
numbers to put in there after a whole day, probably.
Yeah, like the bump once you launch, you're going it's gonna drop an anti-squat down here. So I mean, as soon as the car makes one movement, then you're it changes everything. That's kind of my summary. It's a case by case basis, and even if a customer's like, I want my car set up, well, you need to bring it here first. We're gonna go over it, make sure everything's right, make sure everything's tight, there's no bolts loose, because one little thing is gonna change everything. So I help out with a couple guys at the track. I don't specifically help a lot of people, just a couple, and I know usually what their car is gonna do and whatnot. So, but that's taken months to figure out that type stuff. So there's a baseline, but you just gotta get in the car.
So we'll break it up with some good questions here that people always ask. The wobbly sauce. He goes, "Can't forget pizza and ice cream question." Have you listened enough to get that question?
Yeah, I watched Ryan Hoffman's last week, and
Oh
I heard
boy.
that pop up. So yeah, I would say pizza. I'm not a huge pizza fan, but just like regular pepperoni pizza, I do like ranch with my pizza. That's
Oh,
a Midwest thing, I think. The ranch on everything.
that might stir
So
people up. I never know how
I know.
seriously people take stuff. Like
Yeah.
Italians can just go nuts about. What did one time I cut spaghetti in front of an Italian person that
Ooh.
I knew,
Yep.
and they
Yep.
lost it. They're like, "What the hell are you?" I didn't even know it mattered, but that's my fault, I guess. People
Yeah,
are
that's
probably
funny.
gonna get
It's
mad at
funny you
me.
say that. My wife's family is Italian, so we've
Oh
mentioned that
man.
cutting the spaghetti thing before.
If I know people
Yeah.
are seriously Italian, I'll just do it when I can now. Now that I know it triggers them.
Yeah. Yeah. I like pizza, but it's not. I would definitely pick something else over pizza. Ice cream, I do like sweets. That's kind of my weakness. So pretty much any ice cream I'll eat. I'm not too picky on that.
Those are good answers. Whatever. Just
Yeah. Yeah. No pineapple on my pizza though.
So anti-squat questions, anti-squat question. So that's, people can go back to approximately 30 minutes in, we answered the anti-squat questions.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Do you ever put your shocks on a dyno or tune as needed at the track? I gave him some data logs of suspension telemetry. What does he log at the track? What's priority? And maybe just elaborate on what you like to see or red flags that might not be so obvious to beginners.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of questions.
Yep.
Let's see. I guess shock dyno. It's not a big thing in drag racing to have a shock dyno. I know, like dirt track racing, that's huge.
I didn't even know one existed.
Oh yeah, that's a big like late model dirt track guys. They'll have a shock dyno in their trailer, and they'll revalve a shock right there. So that's a big. I actually got in college. We ran a B modified dirt car for our, I guess, college group. That's where I learned a lot of suspension stuff, and it directly relates to drag racing. So once you kind of understand, I mean, they're trying to plant the tire, they're trying to get the power to the ground. It's a lot of the same principles. So shock dynos not much, kind of just get it valved from AFCO, Mensker, whatever, and see what it does. If it needs to be tightened or loosened, then send it back and get a shock. So yeah. What was the next question on that one?
Oh man,
It's a lot.
When I ask, I delete them. So let me let me go back. I just Control Z'd it back.
I think he was asking about like red flags and stuff.
Yeah, what do you log at the track? What's your priority? And just elaborate on what you like to see and red flags that you don't like to see.
So like shock data, like shock sensors are awesome to see. But if you take your phone out and put it in slow motion and put it next to the rear tire, that'll get you pretty far.
I've seen people doing that lately also.
Yeah, that's a lot of, I mean, with shock sensors, you can kind of see what it's doing. You really don't have to film after you have shock sensors because you can see it on the computer screen, but it still does help see the car move, what the rear end's doing, whether it's separating or, whatever, doing something stupid, or if it's spinning 60 feet out or spinning right to hit. So that's kind of stuff that's what I look at. And then go from there, make a shock adjustment or bar change, something like that. So
I never knew that was a thing until like a year or two ago. I heard people talking about it, and I started looking for it. But the separation, where once the tire gets hit, the car just smash it. Like, so if people don't know it, my understanding is once the tire is dug in, the car lifts, so it tries to push it. The car pushes the tire down hard.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. It's actually the force of the tire planting into the ground. It's that, I guess, that rotational force from the pinion.
It wants to drive the car up, so the suspension, the way you set it up, it pushes it back down, and they just fight each other for traction.
Yeah, basically. Yep. That's kind of the rundown of it. So yeah, that's kind of stuff I look at the track. And
well, I never knew it until people were talking about it, and I started watching cars, and lately I see them. I'm like, man, that pick came up like 2 inches in the back to plant the tire.
Yeah, and it helps with downforce too. If you can get that back end up in the air, you're changing the angle of the car. So, it helps get that tire planted even harder. That's a big thing in radial stuff. And I guess the next question was red flags at the track. What you look at? I don't know. Make sure the car's not doing anything dumb down track. That's a big thing.
If you're trying to steer really hard left or right, there's something bad.
Yeah, you might need
wiggling. There's something bad.
Might need like an anti-roll bar adjustment or something like that. Just make sure it's not doing anything. It can get, especially on new builds where you don't have that seat time, you can get in trouble real quick if you get out and you're out of the groove. I see that a lot, guys getting out of the groove. And so just make sure if you got a new car, start off slow, do like a 60-foot hit, and just keep moving it out and out and out until you're making a full pass. So,
someone asked a good question. I'll just answer quick live. He says, "What's more important, front or rear suspension on a drag race setup?"
Ooh, I would say rear. Rear does a lot. You can get by with single adjustable front shocks, and as long as it's got like rebound or extension settings on the front, you're pretty good. Rear is definitely important though.
All right. Why is Mustang 2 based front suspension so popular for some pro touring cars?
Ooh, that's tough. I don't know much about pro touring stuff. I think just the geometry would probably be the main thing. I do know those are big, popular ones to do that pro touring type stuff. So,
are they like a double wishbone or something that's just works well?
I believe I believe they have an upper and lower control arm.
Well, that would make sense. A lot of older stuff is garbage. So
yeah,
like we were talking about Chevy platforms.
Yeah, torque
arm, steering box for a Mack truck, A-arms that come up 75% way to the hood. Well, blah blah blah. Man, this one is so long. I'm gonna save it for later. This one is like it's long.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna. I feel like that's gonna wear me out reading it. Can you give me reference points for an LS going into a Fox body with a motor plate? I have a stock 8.8, and the transmission crossmember is a QA1 for a glide. I assume I can pop a line from pinion to rear transmission to balancer. Really need to know motor angle up and down if possible. Thanks.
That's a good one. That's a good question. So when we set motor plates, it's going to be tough for the average person with like an 8.8. So we take and we set as long as it has like a rear end in it, some type of housing. 90% of the time it's like a 9-inch housing. So we actually take a third member that doesn't have any pinion in it, and we have a plate that bolts in. And then we don't have a transmission because it's more about driveline angle than it is pinion angle. So basically we just take at ride height, and we have a set of blocks that go in the mains of the engine that fit a 1 5/8 chromoly tube. And we just run that through all the mains and then straight to the pinion. So that's kind of how we set motor plates. Sometimes, depending on ride height, like our shop car, I set that a couple weeks ago. It almost has a downward angle in the front because that rear end is up, pretty high. It's a low car. So that's kind of how we do it. You can take a string and do it that way. You can take transmission out, measure off like the balancer or something flat on the front, and then go into the back, but you're not going to get that driveline angle. So that's kind of how we do it. I know that's not the best for everyone because not everyone can go machine blocks for the mains of an LS engine, and we have a block for where the pinion sits that has an 1 5/8 hole in it. So that's what we do. It makes it easy. Make sure everything's straight and in line. Really just, make sure it's all straight. Make sure, if it's a lot of Mustangs have 3/4 of an inch to an inch of offset to the passenger side. They're not a center pinion or center driveline car.
Nope. I learned that after I thought 1 or 2 of them were just bent, and then I'm like, nope. Could you put in my Fairmonts, I put like a 255 on it, and one side is slicing the tire and the other side's fine. And I'm like, these cars are garbage. They're great, but I'm like, look at this, people. Nothing is straight on any of these things. I don't know how all these bolt-in parts actually bolt into these things.
It's off to the passenger side, I guess, to give room for the driver. So if you're gonna do like a center pinion, you got to move all that back, and it makes it easier to mount the motor and everything because it's just centered. You just measure, can measure pinch weld to pinch weld and get to find the center of the car that way. Another thing we use is like just a basic laser that, you know, we can find center of a car and run a laser all the way down the middle and have, you know, set the motor on that, set the pinion on that. So that's another.
Oh, echo. Every now and then I jump on it, it blasts me, and then it's fine once I start talking. I should start talking like way back here to try to fade into it. But that's something that I was introduced to with, I did the Cody and front end tube nose. And my buddy Kenny had one of those Ryobi or Bosch lasers. And then I bought a $50 one off Amazon that's a green laser to do the rest. I'm like, man, this is nice because you can just you can take a measurement then from the laser to stuff or level it, and and then that has the button you can unclip it and it just balances itself.
Yes. Yeah.
So mine is solid and then it flashes when it's level.
Yeah.
I was like, why is this flashing? And I changed the batteries like 3 times. And then my buddy Kenny is like, mine flashes and when it's level it goes solid. So mine does the opposite, where I'm like, I wish I could change that because why do you want it strobing when it's level when you're trying to, anyway?
Yeah, they're great. I mean, we still drop plumb bobs for some things, especially if like we're trying to find the center of something. Like, you know, we'll drop it off the pinch weld on a car to find the center, mark it on the ground on some tape, and then, you know, measure between them, and then you get a center line. So those things are, that's a good one.
Is that how you find the center of a car, from pinch weld to pinch weld, and then split it?
Yeah, as long as the pinch weld's intact. We get a lot that have been rolled over, you know, the pinch weld's folded into the body, and so that makes it tough. But usually you can go off of like front K-member mounting points, stuff like that. Just find something that's not.
That's a good idea. I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah, something that's not going to move around a lot. I know like some K-members are slotted, so that doesn't help any, but just find something that's, you know, same on each side. That's kind of how we go about it.
This is a good one. It's what's your opinion on Walmart footballs in a coil spring to level a car at the track? Well, I've also used children's softballs, so that's why I say children's sport balls or whatever.
Man, it's funny. We were talking about that before we started, but I had a football in the Camaro when it still had a stock 10 bolt, and it was a 4.8 with like an S475, and it was rubbing the tire because I didn't have it. I just had the stock and a roll bar. I was super budget about it, so football went in there and it worked great.
Yeah, my bumpers were always completely level on all those cars. I'm like, what else can you ask for? A Ford not crushing the right side.
It's crazy. It was almost it's fun to look back and see that we did that stuff back in the day because it's now, you know, we have a full chassis shop and we're building stuff that's, you know, way over to a football in a spring. So. But it's
and then another one. Comb Over Racing, he says, I went 450s on a single adjustable slip-on coil on strange struts.
Yeah, it's amazing how many cars go fast with.
Well, the power management now is so easy. Now it's incredible. So, because I was bringing that up with the carbureted Pro Mod guy. And I was like, you just do this, and you do a rev limiter, you do a ignition retard off of the trans brake, and you have a timer for boost, and you have, you know, you almost don't even need any complex suspension at all because of the power management is so good. And then, as far as I understand, and maybe you'll agree, the minute you stick a radial, you can throw so much power. You can almost throw all of it at it.
Yeah.
All you got to do is dig it once. So that's why that ignition retard off launch is incredible, because you can get the turbo and the engine lit and then knock all the balls out of it to stick the tire and throw it all right back in while everything's spinning.
Yeah. It's weird. Some cars just work with really basic stuff. I mean, like I was talking about earlier, my Camaro, I had like stock rear shocks when I first started racing it in high school, and it went like a 126 60 foot, and it just worked. That's all I can say about that. But
Well, that's one of those things I try to say to people. Everyone thinks they have to. I'm helping someone now with a guy I work with. His son is doing an LS swap, and like he wants to do all the. I'm like, he wants to buy an intake, and then I'm like, well, then you don't have fuel rails, and then you don't have this, and then you don't have a throttle, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't you get a complete engine? He's like, yeah. I'm like, put the stock intake on it. Like, don't touch. How about don't touch anything, and just
Yeah.
go from there. But yeah,
Yeah.
the same thing. Like people think they need to take their whole rear suspension apart, spend $6,000, and probably go slower or break a ring gear because they had so much to set up that nothing
Yeah.
works now.
Yeah. There's some cars just work, and then other people spend 10 grand on, like you said, a rear suspension and
And go
doesn't do
slower.
anything. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like, I mean, it's like anything. It's a case by case basis.
Oh, this is interesting question, but I guess maybe he can reply. What do you do to eliminate wheel hop? I'd say
Ooh.
anything with a decent suspension doesn't, or I guess that would depend on the vehicle because front wheel drives, the control arms dance all over the place. So
Yeah.
traction
Yeah.
bar will do it for like $100 off eBay. I've done that in a Turbo Civic. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, the rest of it is usually it's just bushings are garbage or there's too much play in the back end. But yeah, it depends on the, like I always say, that's a can of worms. It's a
Yeah.
completely open end
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
We'll go to a quick one here. What's the biggest overlooked thing when setting up a chassis?
Ooh, man. That's a tough one.
I would say it's probably people doing too much at once, unless they're
Yes.
doing a custom, like you do a custom chassis. So that would be your answer. But same thing I always say is people are just doing too much at once, can't keep everything straight, and then they have no reference point. Like when you do a control arm, you're like, oh, control arm, you didn't touch anything else. But when you're doing
Yeah.
like complete, like I luckily I have some friends that are good at this, but like in that car, my buddy Jace welded those like 4-link adjustable for inboard coilovers. So now I'm
Yeah.
gonna have 70 slots to put everything, and it's
Yeah.
I'm like it's daunting to me because even the front control arm has like the 19 zigzag holes, and I'm
Oh, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, this is gonna be so difficult.
Yeah.
I'm dreading it, so I'm just gonna bolt it in so the car can roll around, and then I'm probably
Yeah.
just gonna hand someone a bag of money and the car and be like, just
Yeah.
this is
Yeah. That's it.
too
You kind of
fancy.
just have to keep it simple. I People get real deep into doing all kinds of different stuff. I mean, that's like tuning stuff. You can, have a bajillion sensors and not know half of them and what they read, and have a bunch of safeties set up and half of them don't work, or it hits safeties halfway down the track. I mean, that's like,
That's most people I know with nitrous kits. They have a car, they have like $3,000 into a nitrous kit, and all it does is never runs because all the safeties can't shake hands.
yeah.
So I always say to those people, you should have like a Holly because you can do complete dry nitrous control and it can handle, because people have a box and a box and a box and they don't, it takes too long
Yeah.
to, and then they have a fuel pressure safety, which is dumb as hell because the fuel rail always takes a hit when you're spraying a big wet kit. It
Yes.
will
Yeah.
always shut off, like unless you have a standalone fuel cell. But even then, when you have, it's not like a fuel rail that's spraying and the spray comes up. It's
Yeah.
sitting and it goes dunk. It's always gonna do it. So
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
the guy wrote back and he says, sorry for the lack of info. It's a Fox body with an anti-roll bar and adjustable upper and lowers. So I asked, does it hop now, or are you anticipating wheel hop? Because almost nothing I've owned rear wheel drive hops except for a G body with garbage Chevy
Yeah.
control
Or like
arms
leaf
and
spring stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Man, I don't
Well,
even,
that's why I'm asking. Does it
that's a can of
hop
worms.
now, or are you anticipating hop? Because I've never had a 4-link Fox hop ever.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard one do it either. I don't.
I don't think it can. I think the
I
way
mean,
they're set up, they just don't.
yeah, I think I got a good one for most overlooked is shocks that have been on a car too long.
Hmm.
Shocks that have been, those need to, if you're traveling, if you're driving to your track, every couple weeks, well, your car is also seeing those miles on the shock on your trailer. So don't just bolt on a set of shocks and let it, race on them year after year after year. Probably if you're driving a lot and you're serious about racing, those shocks probably need to be gone through once a year.
That's not as bad as I thought you were going to say.
that's I see it a lot. I see old shocks on cars that, haven't been taken off in 10 years and they wonder why it doesn't work. And
that's what happened to my buddy Mitch's car recently that he built. It's gone like high nines, and then all through last summer, it's best as a 928. At some point, he had that car out and he made a hit or two, and it did great. And then everything after it that day was total garbage. And someone said, "How long have the shocks been on the car?" And he's like, "Well, the back ones are pretty new." It was one or the other. I can't remember. One of the ones that came with the car. We're like, really? And my one friend was like, oh yeah. He's like, every now and then you'll get ones that are old and you'll make a hit and they're great, but it basically blows them. So he's like, subsequent hits are awful. You can't ever get the car to hook again. So he bought a used set from somebody that were fairly new, put them on, and we were right back into the 1.2s and digging the tire. So
yeah, that's probably, you just gotta watch the shocks. If you're serious about racing, they probably need to be looked at least once a year.
Make sure said, two guys chimed in and said theirs has wheel hopped. One guy had too low a tire pressure, and another guy says my Fox hopped when I had $20 shocks in the early 90s and with no quad shocks.
Yeah, they're probably zero compression, just bouncing around back there.
I like when you're on the highway and you see like a Dodge Caravan and you're passing it and the wheel is just like
yeah.
I'm always like, man, how does that not translate into the wheel? That's a marvel of modern engineering that everything can be dampened to your hands that well.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, this is a good one. At what 60-foot or power level is an anti-roll bar beneficial, and is it necessary?
Ooh, I would say, if it's starting to
make your car launch better, in my opinion.
Yeah, the flatter you can keep it, launching, the better. Some people, if it's making low enough power, you can get away with the stock one, but if you're putting any power down, then probably need.
I would say if your bumper isn't straight at all, you should have one.
You
can't do it early enough.
Yeah, even just like a basic BMR bolt-on, that'll help. Those are pretty beefy.
Yeah, that took my friend's car from being a total waste at the track to running really good times, like one anti-roll bar install.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, this guy says, in case it doesn't make the show, what are anti-squat? So again, go to 30 minutes in on this, guys. Here's a good one. I'll just answer it quick because he asked on the live. He goes, Matt, what do you think of the new Plaid Model S? He's asking me, I think, because we're both Matt. So you can answer then after me. Someone I know is getting theirs at like the end of the month.
Ooh.
So I think I'm going to go drive it and make a video of it, even though like I don't normally do like watch me drive my friend's car videos, but for that I'm going to. For sure. I probably won't even do like, I'll be like Jeremy Clarkson review. I'll just be like yelling power, I think that stuff is awesome. I've talked about it before. Like electric cars are incredible. I can't wait till standalone controllers are cheaper. And as we move along, wrecked Teslas are only becoming more prominent. And I would love to build a Fairmont with 2 Tesla engines, one in the front, one in the back, and have someone who makes a controller and have a completely quiet like 890 Fairmont.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of scary just because the electric stuff is, it's nice to go to a track and hear engines and running, but it's gonna take over one day, I think.
Oh, here's this. This isn't easy to answer. I'll just have you say it. It's pretty obvious, I think. But he goes, "What's the hype on Fox body Mustangs? Is the chassis that good or just aftermarket?"
Stock, even stock, a Fox body, it's basically a 4-lane car. It's a triangulated 4-lane, so it's about as best rear suspension as you're gonna get. Plus, they're light, they're small, they're not a big car, relatively cheap still. They're getting more expensive as they're getting older. We try and find shells if we can locally. If one pops up, we'll usually pick it up just to have one. We sell the shells with our welded chassis, so they're getting more expensive, but they're still. I mean, you can find a shell, you can find a roller for $3,000. So yeah.
Yes, Mark already answered, and he says both, but that was my answer: is every good facet of racing and cost effectiveness and parts availability and things on the shelf and stuff you can get from your friend and cheap 8/8 rear ends and $20 gear changes, and if you break something, it's like being on drag week. People have Holly. Like if something breaks, 70% of the people are running a Holly. They can all help you. They have spare parts. Like if you're at a drag strip, people make fun of them, of course, but you can't make fun of people like that. They just want something that works. Like why? Not everybody wants to do uphill battle and do
exactly
and just beat their dick into a wall about going nowhere. Like some people actually want to be like, I want a car that's easy to work on. I want to go fast. I want to have no surprises. And that's not a bad thing, but it's all encompassing. That's why people want them. Like the 8s4 8 chassis was only $2,000.
Yeah.
And it came with, the cage wasn't in it, but it came with all the tubing to do the cage. It already had a fuel cell. It already had fuel lines. It already had battery lines. It had a complete tubular back and front end. It had coilovers. It had like literally everything. Because people are like, well, you spent money on this. I'm like, no, it had it. Oh, you bought an anti-roll bar. No, it had that also. Or they're like, well, you put inboard shocks. I'm like, no, it literally came with inboard shocks, everything.
Yeah.
And they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, no one. These cars sit. People spend $35,000 on a Ford motor, sell that to make rent, and then throw the car away.
Yeah, anyway. I see it a lot where people give shit for people getting a Fox body, but why not start with something that's already half proven?
He says something funny. I laugh. This is funny. It is true, Jeff, where he says, I get it, but 275 might as well be called Fox Body 275. It's true. They're just a good platform. I mean, I don't know if like Jeff might be like big into Chevys, but you guys could start a movement and just dominate classes with Chevy platforms, and that would, here's the thing. A lot of people are followers. So everyone's going fast with a Fox because it's just a good platform. But if you make something and you start going fast, everybody just, my buddy Frank says that all the time. Like, people are awful at setting up a race car. So a new ECU comes out, everybody buys it. Or Mencher comes out with shocks, everybody buys it. Or Ron Rhodes has something, everybody buy it. Like, one person goes fast because they're good. They can go fast with anything. And then everybody just sells everything and jumps to that. They have no clue, but the guy that went fast has it, so they need it.
I mean, that's the same thing with like all the Fox body front suspension stuff going on, like no prep stuff. 8-inch travel shocks in the front. I mean, it works for some people, but if you don't know how to use it, then you're just throwing parts at something that you think is going to go fast. So, the Fox body is just it's a good platform.
Oh, he says he just wants to see something different. I would like to too, but it's a good platform, so people are just that's the whole thing. Do you know Scott Brown with Capone?
Yeah.
That, I forget what it is. It's just a super old. It almost looks like a Hudson Hornet. It's a cool.
Yeah.
And that's a good observation of he's working uphill. That thing works, but he's a genius. That he didn't just get that car to go wheelies in mid-8s. No.
Yes.
No. Yeah. A Fox, you can fall into the 9s. And like I showed in that series, you can, like, our 5th pass went at 8 and we screwed up 3 of them. So I mean, we made mistakes and went, 9.0, 9.20, whatever. But then it literally should have been the first or second pass should have been an 880. And that was a complete piece of garbage 95 car with old, like, we messed with the front shocks. It did absolutely nothing. Like, they were blown. They were completely blown. Who knows? The back ones. I mean, the car was last registered or inspected. It had window stickers for inspection in like 2012. was the last time it has ever moved or seen light. So
Yeah, I mean, we talked about doing a different car when we were doing this, our shop car. I mean, the shop car is a Fox body. But it's granted it's 4-link now, and it's a full chassis car basically, other than stock front frame rails. But we've always talked about doing something different, like an older car, 60s, 70s, something. Well, then you run into like, okay, nobody makes composites for it. So if you want a hood, or you want, if it's not a Camaro, if you want to do something completely different, nobody makes a front end for it. Nobody makes a deck lid for it. So you have to have custom made stuff.
yeah, it ends up being thousands of hours into throwaway items if you tap a
exactly.
wall.
Yeah, so that car, we're getting pretty decent prices on composites. There's bolt-on stuff.
What you should do is get a car that's bigger than a Fox in most dimensions and just slide your 25.3 chassis up into it, and then it's not a Fox.
Exactly.
But it's,
Yes. Yep.
You have a shell.
Yeah.
Like when people body swap stuff, like they take the old trucks and they put them on a Crown Vic platform.
Yep.
That's the coolest thing ever. I never knew people did that. My first time I went to LS Fest, I saw like old International pickups.
Yeah.
And a guy found out that like a Trailblazer body bolts right on. So he had like 3 of them. And the one was like a complete Trailblazer SS platform, but he has the air conditioning, everything, the modern gas tank. I'm like, how did you make all this fit? He's like, well, I took the International and went like this on a rollover. I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. You're smart.
Yeah, man, that's wild.
So it had like modern brakes, ABS, air conditioning, everything worked. Perfect. I'm like, how long did it take you to do all this? He's like, Sawzall and a hoist. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, that's really smart, dude. Thanks for enlightening me.
Yep.
Our 4th gen Camaros really that bad? They're pretty cheap to build and still aftermarket. I think you just have to do so much to the front end, back end, and everything else, where the Mustang's ready to go, and a 10 bolt is hot garbage, and a 12 bolt or a 9-inch kit is expensive out of its mind, and then you need to go to the torque arm relocation, and then there's no room under the hood, and then you need to do, like you said, the AC box, and then the radiator is tilted. You need to do a stand up. Like, you can literally have garbage can parts in a Fox with the stock everything. And even my Fairmonts, I boxed in the stock A-arms rear control arms. So I took the rear control arm out and I welded a piece of plate to it, like some thin stuff from Tractor Supply, and stuffed them back in and went mid-9s.
Yeah. So, the Camaro stuff's it's good for some things. Radial racing torque arm stuff does pretty well.
Yeah, I'll say they work, but it's just the ease of use is not there.
No, yeah, there's not. It's tough to get them to work correctly when you could, just buy a Fox body.
That's why people do it, right?
Yep.
It's like you could make a microwave yourself, or you could buy one and microwave food.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, we'll go to a question here. I'm starting the soapbox about how I don't like Chevy platforms. Is there a rule of thumb on 4-link bar size? My Chevy 2 has a CPP 4-link, and now with a Turbo 5.3, I make 600 to the tires. I'm putting a Power Glide in with a brake in it, and I just want to make sure things are beefy enough to launch off the brake on a radial.
That's a pretty good one. Usually, so our shop car has 1 3/8 095 wall 4-link bars, which is pretty beefy, but we're kind of building the car to not have to rebuild things over and over and over again. So I know 1 1/4 095 works also. It's kind of the 2 general sizes. There's a couple kits out there, I think, that's smaller than that, but I probably wouldn't get any smaller than like 1 1/4. It's 1 1/4 even on a 4-link bar looks pretty small. So that's kind of the 2 we use. Most of the time it's 1 3/8 though.
We'll go to, this is a good one. For a hobbyist, when is the point to move from steel to chromoly, assuming you have the skills and equipment to TIG weld both?
Man, I would say if you can get chromoly right away, save yourself the pain of cutting out a mild steel. cage.
Isn't it? You can get, if it's chromoly, you can get away with thinner material, so then you have
Yeah,
more room for everything else, and then obviously it's lighter, right?
yeah.
So
So
you
like
win-win.
mild steel's like a 120 wall. So chromoly is 083. So just in the wall thickness, you're saving a lot of weight. If you take, I mean, our cage kits weigh right at like a 25.3 or 25.2 kit weighs right at 200 pounds.
Wow.
With a mild steel, you'd probably be 300 ish. I mean, it's a good weight savings
Yeah, I
just in
mean,
getting
100
back in
pounds
there.
on a race car is everything.
Yeah, when you're talking that level of it.
That's why I'm
Uh,
interested to see what this weighs. I should have weighed it beforehand, but I know what all these street Foxes weigh because mine's going to have air conditioning and everything, but it's my first
yeah.
aluminum block car. It's like 110 pounds
Uh,
lighter. And then I
yep.
think doing the K member and everything tubular suspension wise and a coilover saves like 75 pounds total,
Yeah.
probably. And then the front end didn't seem like it weighed a whole lot, but there was definitely some weight cutting all the, because I did the nose then. So I know the
Yeah.
nose that's on it now doesn't weigh nearly anything, but you
Yep.
might know like what's the difference in the weight from cutting the whole front end off.
I don't think we've ever weighed a front end. We usually just hack it off and
Just throw it
toss it
away.
in the
That's what
trap.
I
Yeah.
did. I just threw it away. So, I mean, I know I'm going to have almost no weight in the nose compared to what I normally do. Because even my
Yeah.
turbos, I normally hang like a 70-pound turbo up there with an iron block and everything. And
Yeah.
these, like GTX clones, 67, 62 dual ball bearing, like they weigh nothing.
Yeah.
They weigh like 20 pounds a piece instead of
Yeah.
70 pounds for one turbo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say if you can get away doing chromoly right away, that's the ticket. It always sucks to go back in and redo things. I mean, I tell customers all the time, like, go ahead and do it once and be done, and
Unless you're
don't.
going to sell this tomorrow, just
Yeah, yeah,
train.
yeah. It's my buddy's here working on his car. He's
Uh,
getting it right.
what's the fastest a mild steel cage can legally go? I've heard 850 for a 10 point, and I've also heard 750 for a 25.5.
I believe it is 25.5. I believe you can have a mild steel 25.5, but 25.3 doesn't allow you any mild steel. We don't mess with a lot of mild steel stuff, but that's uh, that's kind of the general consensus is 25.5.
What is the biggest headache to put a cage in and why?
Uh, biggest headache is probably welding in there. I'm 6'2", so getting in the back of a box body or something like that is super hard. My alarm's going off. Is super hard to. You got to wedge yourself in there, and I'm not the most athletic or
No, I've
yoga.
always been like, man,
Yeah,
I'm gonna pay you guys because I don't want to do that.
yeah,
Anytime I have to go under my dash to do something, I'm like, nope, I hate this so much.
yeah. 850s aren't bad, but like a 25.5 or 25.3 is super bad.
Well, that's why it makes sense to build the whole cage like you guys do and just cut the floor out and shove it in there. Because you could
Yes,
stand all around that on the floor. Like you have a jig, you said, which would obviously make sense. And then you just weld all that, which is probably 1,000 times easier
yes, yeah,
because there's no car in the way.
yeah. My wife just brought me a DQ Blizzard.
Oh, man.
I know I'm blessed here. She's like, "You're welcome."
Oh,
Uh,
this is about instant center and anti-squat.
yeah,
Well,
that's a
again,
tough.
that's can of worms, and go back to 30 minutes in on this.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah, that's a tough one.
Oh, he says, Matt, can you ask my question about those cage kits? What was that? Was it the one if he's going to give them away for free? Floor structure or 6x6 and rocker bars? I guess that's his question. He just asked it.
I guess. So, what's the question? Is it either or?
I'll have him elaborate, I guess, since I'm asking it now. I think he means, he means which one would you choose?
So
no. Now he's writing no. Okay. Write your entire question, Mark. I'll ask it.
Floor structure or 6x6?
For a fox.
I think I know what he's saying.
For a fox is not the whole question, bub.
Yeah, so we sell a cage kit that has the floor structure, so you can do a 850 cage with a floor structure, which saves you a lot of time down the road with adding on. All you need to add on is the driver compartment and a couple gussets. So you can get a floor structure done. That floor structure is kind of the base for a 25.5 or 25.3. So that's kind of, I guess, the good thing about doing that.
Well, I have another car to start building. I want to put a cage in it, but not a 25.3 just yet. So that's what you answered. If you buy your kit, it's ready to do a 25.3 later.
Yes.
You're not screwing yourself.
Yeah. The only problem with that is once you put it in, weld it in, then you're not going to be able to drop it through the floor, which then you don't get a really tight fitting cage. So that's the only downside. But you are, you got the floor done and you don't have to go back and do it again.
This is there's a guy that's on every one of my shows. His name is Potato R33. He always asks the best questions because I really like what he asks. Every now and then he asks like 5 questions in a row. And then one of them will be serious and the rest just break up the conversation, which I think is good because it can get monotonous, obviously, and some people glaze over when it's too technical. I get it. And so he goes, "This isn't a question, but can you go find the biggest hammer in your shop and come show it to us?" He's done this on like every show, and I think it's great. Like people just go get a hammer and show it to the camera.
Man, I guess we can take a walk out in the shop. Yeah.
Whoa! Take a walk. We're moving, guys. Look at the production value here.
I know the shop's madness right now because we're trying to get the shop car ready. I'm building headers today, so I don't have a huge hammer. My buddy's over here watching the live feed. So
nice.
Man, I don't even know where it's at.
Pick up like a big pipe and say that's your best hammer.
Yeah, we don't even have any like huge hammers. Like it's like a rubber mallet. That's it.
Yeah, the biggest hammer I own is a 3 or a 5 pound mini sledge.
Yeah, like this is it.
Harbor Freight.
This is we don't I don't beat a lot of stuff into place.
It fits. It actually fits.
Yeah, but if you guys want to see the shop car.
Oh man, look at that.
It's madness. I'm getting headers built, custom headers done today. So
that looks like an LS.
Oh yeah, of course.
Sacrilege.
We're doing a cam driven fuel pump, so that'll be interesting to learn. That. Yeah, it'll be a methanol setup and whatnot. So, but that's the biggest hammer.
Harbor Freight dead blow.
Yep.
Any book recommendations for learning about suspension geometry? That's a good one.
There is a good one. I think Jerry Bickle or Quartermax, RJ Race Cars? They have a pretty good one. I have that one. That's a good one to start with because it kind of breaks things down. Breaks it down into a good, makes it, I guess, easy to read and whatnot. So, but yeah, there's not a ton of books out there. You kind of have to learn it as you go.
Learn it or learn from somebody with most car things.
Yeah. Being around someone that knows it is way better than reading a book. I'm not real book savvy. I'm more of a
hands-on.
do it. Yeah, I have to do it to learn it. So,
just like people ask me what they should do for learning how to tune, and I did do classes for a while, and people said they were fantastic, but I'm like, I didn't read anything, I didn't do anything. I got into it, and I learned on my own, and then I knew really good people that didn't kick me out of their places
Yeah.
and let me learn enough, or at least felt bad enough to explain things for me, etc. But
Yeah. Yeah,
same
that's
thing.
I mean, that's the same thing for me. That's how I learned to do all of this. I didn't have like someone teaching me, we've just we have a good team here and we learn off each other and we go to the track and figure things out. So shut the door.
Oh yeah, this is a good one to answer, like, because I know this already too. At what point do you think a stock 8.8 on a Fox has to go? And what car is the newest one that you've caged? I would say an 8.8 will go so fast, like bottom fives, and that's what Mark is also saying.
Oh yeah.
Tech Mark, my buddy on here.
Yep. Yeah.
He says you can dip into the super low fives with an 8.8 at 3,200 pounds, which I agree. I mean, 8s for 8, we just like laughed and went a 564.
Yeah.
And that one wasn't braced or gusseted or
nothing. One of the cars we actually have in the shop right now, my buddy Shane, it's he went 501 with an 8.8. Yeah, and I mean it was braced. It wasn't braced a ton. It wasn't, it wasn't anything crazy, and it had some whine to it. So it was probably at its limit. It had stock housing ends on it, and then we put 9-inch ends on. Actually, this was on another car, and you could see that it's starting to move around when we put the ends on it. So I would think a low 5 is probably like a stock 8.8. You can beef them up and do like a lower control arm and tie those all together and whatnot. So that's probably low 5, I would say.
I'm going to save this one for later that this guy just asked, because I wanted to get to, people were asking about ladder bars, so I wanted to ask that, because that's one thing I see people do, but I don't know much about. I just know it works.
Yeah, I don't mess with much ladder bar stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I almost never see it on the dyno, so.
Yeah, I've probably had one car in here, and the entire time we've been open with ladder bar, it's kind of gets looked over. I mean, now that we're talking about Fox body stuff, everyone, it's easier just to go get a Fox body and run that rear suspension. And
it's so good as is. Yeah. And like we said, you're not customizing everything. You're not, because if you break something at the track and you're like, who has a lower control arm? Who has a shock? 75 people there have a shock absorber. Like I said about Holly stuff on most race events, like everybody has something.
Yeah, ladder bar. Unless I just don't see it very often.
Oh, here it is anyway. I mean, he asked it ahead of time, so I want to. It says, "What is the best way to get a fully adjustable ladder bar set up correctly?" I guess same thing as normal, level the rear and all the other stuff as you would, like a quick notebook, or someone else says like, let's see if I can remember this. When you do like a Fox, usually you do like. You want to match the rear degree with the engine or flat transpan degree. So you want to do like -2, +2, right?
Yeah, it's usually 2 degrees uphill on the bottom. Like,
look at me go! Look at me.
Yeah, that's kind of general. If you don't have any setup, anything, just
so set it. So you want to go degrees. Motor. You want to go 2 down, -2 from level.
It would be.
I thought it was positive and negative. The rear was -2. Because then when you launch, it picks the rear up and then it straightens them out or something like that.
Yeah, you would want 2 degrees headed up towards the body on the car for the lower control arm. Usually the engine is at 2 degrees laid back.
So the pinion angle doesn't matter as much as the lower control arm.
Yeah, you would look at the entire driveline angle. Pinion angle's important, but it's kind of relative to where your transmission and motor sitting.
This is funny. Like Jeff here, I like that he asks these questions because people learn. Some people are terrified to ask questions, so thank you, Jeff. He was asking about wishing people would do other platforms. So he says a GM A body and a G body are 4-link. Are they that terrible from the factory? Well, I'll say what I think, and we'll see because I always like being wrong. I like being wrong. The control arms are like this. They are like a giant open V. Instant center is just an afterthought. Or are they both up at like a 45-degree angle? It's garbage.
I mean, I think they're pretty decent. Like I said, we don't get many G-body cars in here, and it's mainly Fox body stuff. I think the G-body, they're getting better. There's more torque boxes being made for them. There's more not four link, like 9-inch housings made for them now. So they're getting more popular.
Yeah. Once you have an aftermarket housing, it comes with all the hoops, like I said.
Yeah.
Then you have infinite adjustability. But when you're when you
it's
have
just
a stock thing, I had a stock G-body wagon, and I wheel hopped the stock rear right out of it, and then I bought it. I bought it an 8.8 for a Fox body, and they have those control arms that let you put in. I think it's just uppers. You can use the stock lower, and then it's adjustable uppers for you to make sure your tire doesn't rub the fender.
Yeah.
And then there's even a bracket that bolts on, I think, to get it a better upper instant center, like a better. So I had the lowers, and it still wheel hopped, and then I got the uppers, and I set everything up, and it still wheel hopped. And then I actually wheel hopped the tubes out of the rear the one time because I was so pissed that it wouldn't stop wheel hopping. I just brake stood it, and it was just, the rear was like jumping like a hydraulics car. And then I lifted off the brake and just broke it. I just drove through it. And then I put another 8.8 in it and sold it. I was so annoyed with it.
Yeah, I think the G-body stuff, I don't see much of it through here.
At what point are torque boxes on a Fox an amazing upgrade?
Ooh, I would say anytime you need
like the anti-roll bar.
Yeah, I mean, there's no downside to it. I mean,
I don't know what he means. Just the battle boxes, like a torque box stiffener, or an adjustable, like you weld in and it has the 5 hoops or whatever.
Yeah, I would say if you can put in upper and lower torque boxes, then you'll be pretty set. The people have gone plenty fast with those. The stock stuff is a little sketchy unless you go in and weld all the seams and put some bracing in, and those can rip and tear.
I think
so. You
I've
just have
done foot brake, and I've done stock torque boxes on 90% of mine and never had a problem. But it's not a trans brake 120 60-foot car, so that's the difference people should know. Also, if it's a foot brake street car that's going 150, you'll probably never hurt it.
Yeah. I would say it's a pretty good. That's another one. It all comes down to what the car is and what your power level, tire.
It's funny that doesn't seem like a big thing, but trans brake 120 versus a foot brake 150 is massive. It's like getting rear-ended. So one of them, the car comes off the brakes as the converter's loaded, and it's like, whirr. And the other one is like getting hit with a Mack
full
truck.
Tilt.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Yes, he asked this already, I think. But the newest chassis you put a cage in.
Ooh, we did a C606 like a year ago. That was tough. That was a tough cage to do, and we did a 25.5 floor structure in it also. The hardest part about that was it's a Z06, so the frame is aluminum. So you can't go welding in plates. You have to bolt in the plates, and you have to double up the plates. So you have to get to the other side of the frame, which is in the rocker. So that was a tough one. That's about the hardest one we've done.
The newest and the most difficult because it's a new aluminum car.
Yeah.
Only thing that would be worse than that is like a carbon fiber tub car, which very few. I mean, the only person I know that might do something dumb like that is my friend Jordan Martin, and he has that AMS Hurricane, the wheelie one.
Oh yeah.
So he built that car. He caged out that whole car just to do that show on Netflix where they like rally the cars through all sorts of things. He built that car with an AMS turbo kit and everything just to do the car, like the show.
Whoa.
So then what they did was they were kind of staring at it like, what do we do with a Hurricane with a cage? No one's going to want to buy it. So then they were like, why don't we develop a program? Because Underground Racing has the Lambo stuff. Nobody else does it. So Jordan and Martin know each other pretty well. Well, his name's Jordan Martin, and the owner of AMS now is Martin. What's funny is Arnie Toman, the guy I had on one of the radio episodes, he and Martin co-founded AMS. So it's funny that all those guys know each other. So Jordan was like, hey, should we just develop and smack down UGR a little bit? So they started to, and they got so far into it. Now that car took all the records from UGR.
Ooh.
Yep. Yeah. Now it's giving them some heat, because for the longest time it was a giant mystery thing, and people are like, I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how whatever. And what's funny is a lot of those cars are roll race cars, and they're secretive, right? So then AMS starts doing that and catches up to them and passes them in like less than a year. So now they're feeling the heat, right?
Yeah. So those cars are those carbon tubs?
I'm just saying some crazy exotics are, and the only person I know that would do something dumb like that is Jordan. And then I just offshooted because of how crazy he is. They sent me a video clip the other day. My buddy Arnie was driving with him, and you ever see those really big AMG C63 SUVs?
Mm-hmm.
Or what is it? S60? I don't know what it is, but it's a giant. He bought it in lime green, and it's gigantic. And my buddy Arnie comes out of like a Giant or a shopping center, and he goes, and he's just panning his camera, and he's like, Jordan, where do we park? And it's like a mountain. It's bright green in the parking lot. I can't find the car. And then the next clip is them like driving through a snowy field in like a cornfield somewhere. Like he's on the road, and he's like just goes into and I'm like, the only person I know that would do that is.
That's awesome.
I'm like, Jordan bought that, and he's like, yep. I'm like, Jordan's driving. He's like, yep. A G-Wagon. Awesome. Yeah, it's like a G63, or like it's a super high-end G-Wagon. Retarded. And lime green.
Yeah.
So yeah, if he ever bought like a Koenigsegg or some McLarens, our carbon tub, I think.
Yeah.
He would. He would call you up and ask you to do a carbon cage.
Yeah, that's the hardest one. That C6 was tough. And it's a small car. That's a small car to be crawling into.
They don't seem that small, but like when I sit in one and back it on the dyno, the tire is like right against your face nearly.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that as much. And then your feet are in the tire well.
Yeah.
It's literally, it couldn't get much smaller.
Yeah.
All right, question time. Sorry. I'm new to your channel, and I have some questions on one of the cars you did a video on. What would be the best way to contact you?
There you go.
I guess he would just call you guys from. Is it on your website and everything else?
I think so. Yeah, it's probably on Facebook.
So yeah, I guess you would just call. What's the best way to contact? Is call probably, or?
Yeah, you can call, leave a message, or email us, or any one of them. Yeah, we usually try to get back within the hour on phone calls and stuff like that. Right now it's a little hard because we're crazy busy. So if we don't pick up the phone, then definitely leave a message. We get people calling that don't leave messages, and you're just like, okay, well, I don't know what you need.
Here's one. I know this guy too. He says, my situation is odd, and I'm wondering the best route. I ordered an 8-point C4 Corvette setup, and the main hoop was lost in the mail. All I got was the front strut kit. I have a local fab shop near me, but the car is stuck in my garage. Would it be a good idea to take something like that, take something like flexible conduit on the main hoop shape and bring it to the chassis shop for them to copy? Or is there something else that would work better versus bringing the car in?
Ooh. That's tough. I mean, I've had people bring in conduit before, and they've hand bent it, and we've got a cage, main hoop pretty close.
So that's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, it's tough. It is. It's not the easiest. The chassis shop's probably they're gonna hate it because it is tough because we got to put it in we got to put it in Bentec and make sure it measures out to what it needs to be. But it's not a bad idea. It's funny that he mentioned all that and gets lost. I've had in the past 3 or 4 months probably 4 claims with FedEx for our cage kits getting destroyed
Yep.
on pallets.
Everything. It's late or gone or destroyed. Yep.
Yeah, and we use metal banding to hold the tubing down, and we get pictures, and all of it's ripped off. There's tubes missing. The box we put on there is just crushed. Like
That's what I got. I joke about it, but I got that stroker assembly from Summit, and my crank was poking out of the box. My crank was out of the box. I was just laughing.
I got some Johnson lifters today or yesterday for the shop car, and it came in a box that was probably, I don't know, maybe a 10 by 10 box, and it was probably a 6 by 8 box when it got here. I mean, it was destroyed, and I was like, well, hopefully there's lifters in here.
Yeah, they're bad. I mean, I sell plug and play harnesses for Holly stuff, and like so many of them, people are like, I don't have it yet, and I look and it says like it's somewhere, like it says it's in Ohio, and I'm like, this sucks, because like for me to not be a dickhead, I have to send you another, and then if you get another, then you have two, and then if I tell you to wait, it sucks. If I tell you to contact the post office and get nothing done, that sucks. So I'm like, if I send you another and you don't get that also, then I'm going to be pissed off.
Dealing with FedEx claims is awful also, because they don't want to deal with it. You have to send them pictures of it, and it's a nightmare.
They just want to shun you into giving up.
Exactly, yeah.
That's what my experience is. They just stonewall you into giving up.
Yep.
It's awful. But what are the differences between a 25.2 and a 25.3 cage? All the bars are the same. It just depends on weight. I don't know enough about
that. 20. So it's 25.3 and 25.2. Is that what he's asking?
3 and 5.
Okay, so 5 and 3 there is a difference. So 25.5 you only need one roof bar. 25.3 needs a roof X, so it's another bar, and then you need gussets on those X's for a 25.3. You can get away with very minimal bars on a 25.5 if you have like a full floor, full floor, stock floor, stock firewall, stock everything behind the main hoop also. I think all you need is inner frame rails, I believe it is. Don't quote me on that, but it's very basic. 25.5 doesn't require much if you got the full floor and everything. So
I always get that backwards. People always get mad at me, especially like cage guys and dirt modified or people that do circle track. I'm like, that's a Legends car. People get so mad. Anyway, I always forget, is 25.5, so the lower the number, the better the cage is. So a 25.2 is a really serious cage. 25.3 is not as serious, and 25.5 is not as serious. Is there any explanation? This is he just said it's 25.2, 25.3, 25.5. Why do they call it that? I've never asked.
That's a good question. SFI is a weird...
it's just a shrug, right? They just called it that.
Yeah, I think there's a letter after each of them. So I have it pulled up. It's 25.1. It's a 25.1J, 25.2D, 25.3C, 25.4C, 25.5D, and then 25.6 has no letter after it. There's got to be a reason, or they just named it that, and that is what it is.
And why have them? What doesn't make sense to me is why are they all like? Is it a number of tubing or everything's 25 something? Why isn't it like a 16 cage? Like the higher the number is, the better the cage is, right? So like a 16 cage, a 18 cage, a 24 cage. Am I just a moron for thinking that? I guess I'm not. They're engineers, right? So they had to do that.
Yeah. I think I've never asked that. Maybe there is a reason. Maybe
they're engineers. I'm gonna blame it on engineers. This was a great idea in someone's head, and now this is what everybody does.
Yes.
Oh, this is funny. Mark says somewhere there's some FedEx dickhead just building a badass car out of everybody's lost parts.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Would you ever build a radial versus world chassis? I guess aren't they all 25 somethings also?
That's usually a 25.1. So 25.1 is 750 and quicker.
All the 25s. What's a 20? Yeah. What's a 25.4?
Oh, that is a.
It does exist. I was being a jerk.
Oh no, 25.4 is a thing.
Because
That's a.
everyone says 2, 3, and 5. So I said, what's a 4? And you're like, oh. And I'm like, okay, never mind.
They recently came out with that. I don't, maybe not recently, but it's a newer spec. So a lot of guys are doing it with S10s because you don't have to run the down bars through the rear window.
Oh.
So we did a cage probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago. It was a S10 where it was a 25.4. So it's basically a 25.3, but you don't have to have the rear down bars going through the glass. That's kind of the designation. And then on a 25.4, you can have like square tube frame rails. So 25.3, you're not allowed any square tube. So yeah, it took me a while to get used to the specs. There's a lot. I have all the books, and they're 20 to 30 pages each. So
no thanks.
Yeah.
Better you than me.
It's nuts.
At what horsepower level should you think about motor plating? This is something that I'm always against, motor plating. I don't really like it.
I like it because it helps stiffen the front of the car together, and it also helps less distortion on the cylinders. On the when you got just two motor mounts pulling on the middle cylinders, it'll move them around and stuff. So motor plates help stiffen the front of the car, keep those, especially if you're running like stock block stuff, where you're worrying about every little detail. So
yeah, I mean, I get it. I just hate them. I think it's a pain in the ass to build, pain in the ass to install. All your accessories and bell housing and everything is garbage. Then people just want to do it because I feel like people want to do it because they want to be like, people want to look at it and they'll be like, yeah, I have a motor plate. My car's so serious. I'm like, you go 970. What the hell are you doing? But I get it from like a 25 whatever chassis, but as far as like when should you do it, like you say, it's suggestive.
I try to get customers into like a motor plate because most the people don't stay at the power level they're at. They're going to go faster. They're going to be.
You're building a nice chassis, so you don't want to have them do the work 6 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Potato R33. Chassis wise, what car is built from the factory way better than most of us would expect? That's a good question.
Ooh.
Like I would say not a Fox because that's just the easy way out, right?
Yep. Man, that's tough. F bodies are built. They're pretty dense. They're built with pretty thick material. Like you would think a car that came from generally the same era would be kind of the same build quality, but F bodies are pretty stout. They're heavier, obviously.
Well, I know when I close the door on one of those on my dyno that car is substantial.
Yeah.
It feels like a 250-pound vault door swinging shut.
Yeah. It's weird that they, like I said, they came from the same area, but they're kind of way different, I guess, build qualities.
Mark says, Matt, that's funny. I have a friend who has motor plates and his stuff doesn't even run single digits. That's me just being a jerk and calling people out, but it's always the truth. There's always some truth in me being a jerk.
Yeah, nothing wrong with going, doing your car right, doing a chassis and going slower at first, but don't just do motor plates thinking you're going to run faster with them.
Yeah, I just like to make fun of people, even myself. People, every now and then people will be like, you're mean. I'm like, you should hear me talk to myself at night.
Oh yeah.
Man, you have no idea.
Yeah, I'm my worst critic.
Yeah. Like I drop something and I'm like, great, good job, jerk, blah, blah. Like I'll be mean to myself for 10 minutes for dropping something. If I drop it twice, oh man, I'll never hear the end of it from myself. What effect can a poorly chosen spring rate have on a drag strip? How much weight, either added or removed, would call for a change in spring rate?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is.
That's
something I wouldn't even think about because people throw weight all over in a car, and you don't really know if they're swapping out a spring or anything.
Yeah. I mean, like if you took a 12-inch 150 spring and went to like a 13 or 14-inch, you got a little bit more stored energy in that 14-inch.
So, yeah,
even just changing lengths are going to change different stuff. So that's a good question, but that, I guess that doesn't, you don't think about that stuff very often, just changing springs around. Most people just set it and forget it. Yeah, that would just come down to chassis setup and what the car's doing and what it's needing.
I would think from like what my buddy Frank has done, that they set up the car to run good and they move the weight for fixing the problem because they need the weight. So if they have somewhere, if the suspension or car is doing something funny, then they move weight around.
Yeah,
that's my assumption.
Yeah, that's spring rate. That's a good question. That was a good one.
It is. That's stuff that you could ask my buddy Frank, stuff like that, because he's a tuner, a driver, a builder. Like, he does everything. So yeah, it's always funny to ask him a question because he'll answer you. He'll either totally knowledge bomb me out of existence or answer in the most simple, funny way ever.
So, yeah, it comes down to scale in the car too. You know, you gotta get on scales, see what it weighs, where the splits are, and that kind of determines
all that stuff. I don't care about at all.
yeah. There's some general spring sizes, but it's car by car basis.
That's why, like I think I said to you earlier, I'm like, I just like to do nothing and add a bunch of power.
Yeah.
Because all that stuff's way too, like I said, if you change a whole bunch of stuff on the back and the front and everything else, the whole car is like screwed up and you have to fix everything.
Yeah.
No thanks. Oh, sorry to have so many questions, but do leaf spring sliders provide a benefit to any taking a leaf spring car to the... Oh, this is like... Maybe I'm not reading this right, but maybe the grammar is not good. Do leaf spring sliders provide a benefit to anybody taking a leaf spring car to the track? Or are they more for dedicated leaf spring classes, providing minimal benefits to most people?
They just keep the spring from binding. It lets the spring be a spring and not try and act as something else.
I feel like a lot of leaf spring cars are running sliders because they're just really good.
Yeah, it helps keep the spring.
Like you said, it doesn't want to twist it; it just lets it ride.
Yeah, it slides with the. They got to be set up right though. You can get in trouble with that if you weld it in the wrong spot and you go to launch and it shoves it in the back of the spring slider and you got an issue that you don't know is there. So
bottoming it out, yeah.
Yeah.
How would I go about lowering an old bracket Vega from the 70s so it doesn't sit like a stink bug? I don't really have any room to move the front of the ladder bars up. They are already at the floor pan.
Oh boy. Getting it low, that's going to mean you're just going to
cut everything.
Yeah. Depends on like what springs and what shocks and if you even have the room to move a tire up into the body.
That's one of those where you'd have to look at it to advise.
Yeah.
I would love to hear the thought process of, I just put together my Turbo LS Fox body, rear coilovers, new front suspension shocks, struts, maybe some torque boxes, maybe some front suspension limiters, the basic stuff for a totally new build and untested combo. Before I go to the track, I should check or measure ... On the video of my first pass, I should be looking for ... Obviously combo suggestive, but what is the thought progression from preparation for a first pass to a new car getting dialed in?
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. Really just make sure your car is aligned correctly. Get the front end aligned, get the rear aligned, make sure it's not dog tracking down the track. And then just go over everything, nut and bolt everything, make sure everything's tight. And then just go out and make a 60-foot hit and see what it does. It goes back to you're just going to have to go with something and
put everything in the middle and try.
Yeah.
I would say roll out. Get rolling and roll into it. And if it feels like crap, look at everything. Or like you said, if it's a radial car, you want a slow motion video that shows, is the tire hooking? Does it separate? Is it doing what you want? So I would say slow motion video and make sure all your bolts are tight.
Yeah, slow motion. Yeah, the video thing is a good one. have someone that has a decent camera too, not a potato. That's something where you can actually, slow it down and see what's happening. But yeah, the new car thing that's tough. It's nerve wracking going out with a new car. It's a new.
What we've done in something like that with a whole new front end and everything else is align it with like strings, and then we just drive it around and make sure nothing's rubbing, sounds like shit, tires aren't dragging, and then roll in and out of it on the street. Like take it on a straight road, roll into it, and if it feels straight, it's pretty good. And if it's not dancing or anything else, I mean, like the 8s for 8 when we finished it, we took it up and down farm roads, and I like 2-3'd it, and it was breaking up and everything, but I was like, if it feels like it'll drive itself right now, so we're probably pretty good to smack it.
Yeah, it really comes down to if the car is like street legal and ready to like drive on the street, or
Makes
is it
sense.
like strictly a track car. Strictly a track car gets a little tough because the only time you're gonna know if it goes straight is if you're making a 60-foot hit.
Yeah.
You can't take it out on the road.
And then you got to make sure, like I said earlier, you're not the guy that yanks the wheel when you let go of the brake.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is driver inflicted.
Yeah.
Maybe have someone who's a driver make a pass for you.
You could do that. Yeah.
That seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah.
Like if you have someone who's pretty good on, like if you build a track motorcycle, have somebody that's, that can give you feedback that's not bad.
Yeah. 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 Especially, I mean, we're building a shop car, and the last time I raced was 2016. So it's going to be, I mean, I haven't been in anything crazy fast in years. So we're definitely going to take it slow, and, build off that rather than getting out and trying to run a 4 right off the bat. So yeah, take it slow.
How do you go about installing Lexan door windows on a Fox?
Ooh, are they talking like bolt-in, like with a window frame, or are they talking just in the stock track?
Because he says in a F body, but yeah, we'll wait till he answers that. Stock track or bolt-in, or he said F body.
So the guy that just the Anthony Samsel, he's the one that's in the shop right now.
Yeah,
he's over there watching the live feed.
What did he say?
He's putting in Lexan windows in his door. So he cut up a stock F-body door to put in Lexan windows to cut weight. So that's we'll tell him.
If you want to sell this guy the photos and a how-to real quick, since you're already doing it.
It's funny. He's kind of been struggling with it. It's a little. I told him just buy fiberglass doors and be done with it, or just keep the stock ones and turn up the boost a little bit.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about turbo cars. Get bigger turbos.
Yeah.
Where is? Okay, we'll get rid of that one now, so I have less. So noob slow car home built garage question. My situation is odd. Oh, is this the 8 point? Yeah, this is the one I already read. I think he asked it in 2 places because I had it in 2 things here. Oh man, we're gonna ask that really long one at the end here. That one is so long. Anyway, by the time I get halfway, you're gonna forget what I was asking. I think. Not to be offensive at all to the guy who's asking it. But I can't remember stuff that far, so I'd be like, what? Maybe I'll break it up. Maybe I'll break it up into...
Yeah.
Let me do it right now. Oh, yeah. Well, we already asked that one. Yep. So he asked the same question in 2 places, so I got it from 2 places. Okay. Ever worked on a S197 chassis? Any option on the 3-link rear? Any opinion? I'm sorry.
People, they go fast with them.
Isn't that a 3-valve Mustang body? The first retro look?
I think so. That's like a 05.
Yep. It's the first retro body.
14. Yeah.
From the new edge to the one with the circle headlights again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the S197, it's a good... I think the 3-link works pretty well. We don't see a lot of them come through. Um, we have had one that we've done like an 850 on. We actually have a S550 in the shop now, getting a 4-link. So um, that's an IRS car. So the 3-link things kind of, unless you're running a class, we don't see too much of it. I think that question above them's pretty decent though. That
typical first cage mistakes.
Yeah,
yeah, it is a good one.
Yeah, I would say just take your time. If your welds are decent and you follow the the SFI or NHRA specs, then you're going to be fine. We've had one car roll in the past 5 years, so that was an 850 cage. We did it had a door X on it, like a 25.5, but everything else was 850. He went off the end of a track, caught the grass and rolled it side to side like 4 or 5 times and end over end a few times and landed on its roof. And it was the cage was perfectly intact. The only bar that bent was the 8-pillar, right between the windshield bar and the dash bar. It was bent there, so the welds held. Yeah, as long as you're following the SFI spec, then you're not going to have drag racing crashes. They're tough. Like I've talked with my inspector that does all of our chassis inspections and stuff, and it's a very reactive sport. They see a wreck at an NHRA event, and a rule gets changed because of that. There's not much proactive crash testing that goes on. I mean, we design cages, in Bentech and put them in SolidWorks and stuff, and there's not much unless you get it structurally tested. It's kind of follow the spec and hope they have the best testing that they have.
I have a good question about the cage stuff then. What I'm going to do, I just thought of this since you have the chat open. I'm going to paste what that guy wrote so that you can read it and you can break it up into segments.
Okay.
So get ready.
Yep.
Oh, it has too many characters to paste. Oh it's boy. I'm gonna cut some out of it.
Okay.
And I'll keep pasting it in segments.
Yeah.
This is still no. I'll post it to you in your. Can you look at your Facebook?
Yeah.
I'm gonna paste it in there because then it won't limit me. I'll take a look at that, dude.
Okay.
Anyway,
boy.
I'll ask my question before I forget. Like drift cages versus drag racing cages. I feel like drift cages are better, but they won't ever let you race. Like it is a better, like a NASCAR bars and everything. I feel like their cages are easier to get in and out of, are more protective. They have more smart layout, but drag race won't accept that. They want like their weird ass bars, which I think is dated.
Yeah, I don't. They're such a different. Like they're just so different between. There's nothing between the two. The only thing I can think of is, I mean, NASCAR style, that type of cages gets tested, weekly. They have a lot more data.
They're bumping each other all the time, so they're stressing them, and then they're going 180 all the time. So I feel
there's
like
a lot more data.
A lot of drift cages, in my opinion, mirror NASCAR, and I feel like it's even better than a drag race cage. But all they'll let you, I feel like they should let you. I don't know. I don't really like a lot of NHRA rules because I feel like it's old crusty dudes from the 50s are still regurgitating. Like you said, as soon as something happens, they knee jerk and do something. Whether or not it works or doesn't work, they just do it.
Yeah, I think NHRA cages protect the driver a lot more. Drift cages protect the compartment, like a NASCAR car. It can, the whole compartment stays together. Drag racing is kind of strictly driver related. There's, it's just about the driver, keeping that driver safe in there and being light as possible.
And I haven't seen enough like like rally car cages like Travis Pastrana or whatever else. I don't know if there's huge differences with those. Obviously, those guys will tumble down a mountainside and be okay.
Yeah. I think there's just a lot more testing that goes into that. NHRA is, and like the crazy thing is, like a 25.2 or a 25.3, for the spec, all you need is 2 down bars in the rear. The only reason that people add a ton to the rear and do like a full back half section is to strengthen up the rear of the car, because you're putting so much power down. That stock metal is moving around, put it in a Fox body. If you do like a 25.3, which is 2 down bars and make 2,000 horsepower.
That's a Coke can, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a weird spec. I don't 100% agree with everything that is in those books, because it is knee-jerk type stuff, type reactions. So
I'd love to see all three next to each other, like actual rally car, professional drift car, and race, like drag race NHRA style cage, all next to each other. Because I've gotten in and out of drift cars that have extensive cage, and they're super easy to get in and out of, and they're comfortable, and you have a lot of room. And then there's, I mean, it depends on the vehicle and stuff too. But some of those Halo cars are ridiculous. And then people put the window net thing right where it'll scalp you. Why don't you put it higher or behind? I don't know. Maybe you guys do a better job than most people welding a seat buckle up there. But man, you only have to hit your head on that like twice to never want to do that ever again.
Yeah, we don't do the seatbelt buckle thing. That drive me nuts. We do like a it's kind of like a pull type style.
Like a fire extinguisher safety pin.
It's like it's like you pull back. It's kind of like the dirt track style. You pull back and drop it out of the loop.
Oh, interesting. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, so it's just 2 tabs on the chassis. That's kind of the style we try and stick with, because there's only a small tab.
Mark goes, drift cars and rally cars just use more dimple dies and gussets because it looks cool.
The dimple dies, that's funny.
Yeah, because they always weld the cage to the A pillars and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because all they're going to do is pound into everybody, so they need to keep the car straight.
I think that might be required in their spec too. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think you have to connect it more to the body, but I don't build those cages. So.
Do you want to read this 2-3
paragraph? I just started to look through it. I read it before. I noticed it before. That's a tough one.
So someone asked, I can answer this while you're reading all that. Can I schedule my DIV inspector to come to me? Yes, you can. You can. A lot of those guys will come to you for a chassis cert. I think that's what he's asking. There's a guy locally to me that I do data center work, and he works in the one data center, and what he does part-time is chassis inspections.
Yeah.
So all the local shops that I know, he goes to them and does their certs.
Yeah, so my guy, his family used to own a drag strip out this way. It's not around anymore, but he's the one, he does all. So we live in St. Louis, so St. Louis is like drag racing door slammer capital of the world. So
wow,
Bickle, McAmis, Jeffers are all within 30-45 minutes from here. So he does all of their chassis. So when we make it,
McAmis, is that the guy that makes all those calling people out videos? He's very I don't know, abrasive at times. I love that guy's videos. He's like, don't do it, you're an idiot. Like, we need more people like that, I feel like.
Yeah. So Mike's my inspector, so he comes out to the shop whenever we need something done. So most of our cage design, if we make a change, it's because he recommends something, because he sees it at pro mod shops. He sees wrecked cars in there. So there's a lot of things we do in our chassis that's because of his suggestions. And,
not in a book.
Yeah. Which some of them are, might be a little much at times, but you got to think about it. He sees all of the big name pro mods. He sees all of the wrecks. They go, if there's a big wreck, they get pictures on it and they have meetings over it. So I trust his word, and he trusts us to do good work. So
yeah, of course.
This question's interesting. Oh man, I don't even. I think you're still going to have like a 2-degree down pinion angle. Man, so usually if we have a rear end that's higher than the crank, we'll usually have to remount the motor and point it at the rear end.
He probably has an axle flip. Oh, sorry, I'm like feedbacking the shit out of you. I think he has an axle flip to make that happen, I would assume. So he probably has an extreme drop.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lowered truck, and I didn't know that his must be low then, because that's just a regular bed.
Yeah, it must be extremely, because I've tuned some lowered trucks and they weren't anywhere near that bad. And I did an axle flip kit on the guy that owns the dyno. I did an axle flip kit on his brand new 14 Sierra, and it is dumped, but it doesn't have driveline angle issues.
Yeah, he says it's a parallel 4-link, so it's a 4-link regular cab short bed.
That's weird. A Sierra 1500 that's 4-linked? I mean, he must have built the 4-link?
Yeah, I would. I mean, as much as it sucks, you probably need to remount the motor to get it. I mean, if it's that low, I mean, you gotta get those driveline angles in check.
It must not be a stock LS vehicle.
Yeah, with an LS. I don't know what a next gen 78.
It's a turbo. It's a VS Racing turbo.
Oh, okay.
It's like all the regular stuff. That's why he says like he has all the standard stuff, which is, an LS, a next gen, blah blah blah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be
uphill compared to the Trans, yeah, that's weird as hell.
If you're gonna be making serious power with that truck, then you got to remount the driveline,
or you got to lift it back up. Shouldn't be that. It's obviously too low.
Yeah, the motor needs to be remounted and pointed at the pinion, and then you can go down on the pinion angle like 2 degrees.
I've never seen that where the drive shaft is going uphill.
Yeah, that's interesting. It must be low. I mean, that's got to be. I mean, I've seen trucks with 5-6 drops and not had that issue.
No, the one I did on my friend's truck was a 5.7 with the axle flip, and it still had no problems near that. Because normally a truck is like a 45-degree angle, so you have to go like rear end above frame rails to get that to happen.
Yeah, because usually the output shaft's like right in the middle of the frame.
Weird.
And we got people setting off fireworks here.
Wow.
Like June 12th.
Well, I guess we'll go. If you guys want to start asking live questions, I'm out of pre-asked ones. So we'll wait. We'll give everybody some time to stew in their juices in the chat here. It's nice that you have it because most people don't look at it. I was
just reading through it.
I'm almost happy to have not a 7-hour show because we're going to go to the track, I think, at 6:30 in the morning.
Ooh,
so
that's early.
Yeah, normally I tune every Sunday and I get up early to tune, but not 6:30.
Yeah.
Not that I get to sleep much past 6:30 anyway. I have a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And he wants to play Legos and race cars at 6:30 in the morning. So.
Yeah. My kid's usually up at 6:30 or 7 too.
I have not slept in 3.5 years. So what's the difference?
I guess the Potato 33. That's when you decide to go for a cage or stages of a cage. I guess he's asking what stage does he? I guess what stage do you go to? It really depends on how fast you plan on going.
Well, we answered that earlier, where use case scenario, and if it's a street car, you probably really shouldn't have it. Or I said, I don't like cages at all, and I've seen people get killed from bumping their head on a 15-mile-an-hour fender bender. So I'm going to put one way back, and it's more for structural, for the 4-link, and I know it stiffens the cars really well, but I don't want to be anywhere near door bars or anything stupid. There's no reason, in my opinion, for 2 or 3 track passes a year I'm going to make. But
Yeah.
I do want it there if I lit it so it doesn't completely shut on
Yeah.
me. But I
And
don't
then
want it near my windshield, or there's no point.
yeah, and then like yes, he said again, from what I understand, once you have a cage, you should have a harness, helmet, and Hans to be safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the harness, if you're street driving, make sure you're wearing the harness. Because
Actually, not just
you
sitting in there.
yeah, you can move a lot with a loose harness. So if you do have a cage and you're driving, put the harness on so your head it doesn't have the
The cage
possibility.
isn't supposed to stop your head once you fly off the seat.
Yeah, the harness is the first line of defense.
I think the coffee one, see, he always starts throwing down good ones.
I do like coffee. That's my
I love coffee.
every morning I gotta have my coffee.
It doesn't even, I don't need it. It's funny, I can drink 16 ounces of coffee and go to bed.
Yeah, me too.
I just love it.
Yeah, I usually have like I have like a Yeti. Actually, I have it right here. I have like a small Yeti.
Oh,
Not
man.
small. This is like 30 ounces.
I
fill that
started
up.
buying Stoke Black Cold Brew.
Ooh.
And you can just drink it. I can. It's so good. And
Yeah.
I buy that, and then I put like, sometimes I put a little bit of creamer or stuff in it, but you can pour it and it looks like motor oil, and it tastes you don't even need anything in it. It's that good. So I think they make a couple flavors, but that's my jam lately. There's like a yellow. There's all sorts of label colors, and the one that I buy it's like teal or green.
I know what you're talking about.
Check that stuff out. It's incredible. Anyway,
I do like black coffee. That's my.
Yeah, I don't like much in it at all.
Yeah.
If you can't drink it like that, it's awful anyway. It's like beer. People talk about like, it has to be ice cold. I'm like, that's because it's awful, because you don't want to taste it. Yeah. If you have to drink it freezing cold, it's because you can't taste it.
Yeah. Hey, I guess that guy got a seat mount kit from us.
Oh yeah, nice. I like that. What's the fastest car you've built? Like whatever, like the chassis anyway. Or personally. I guess answer both.
Let me see. Fastest car we built a cage for.
Or an entire chassis or whatever,
Man, that's tough.
Or are they all like 4.0 cars or something?
Not really. Most of them are like low fives.
Okay.
We send out those chassis, so I'm sure the welded chassis go in. I know a couple of them are going to like Carolina No Time guys. So those will be like mid 4-ish cars. I mean, we're working on
he's saying personal car, not a shop car. That's why I asked that. That's why I said, like, I'm assuming one you built or one that you own, or So one that you own and built, how fast has it gone?
My Camaro went 972 back in like 2016. That's the fastest I've been. That's the fastest car I've built personally.
Cool.
Our shop car should be into the 4s eventually. So
yeah, methanol and everything, that should be pretty serious. My buddy Cameron with the Crown Vic, he's doing that in his next setup. We're going to do dual fuel, where it runs on the one and it transitions to methanol. So we're learning about how to do that and everything else, and that's what he's going to do. So he built a fairly stout 5.3, and he's changing it to twins again, and we're going to learn all about doing methanol.
Yep. Yeah, methanol is going to be a kind of a learning curve. So we're building this car specifically for Rocky Mountain Raceworks Week in September. We're sponsoring the Rowdy Radial class, which is an 1/8 mile small tire. It's like a 26.85 tire class. So we're going to have, I just built last weekend a 14-gallon fuel cell for the rear, and then we're going to have a small 3 or 4 gallon up front for methanol. So we're just going to swap lines around. We're not doing like a true dual fuel. We're just going to swap lines at the track every day and then drive on 93 pump gas. So.
That's his biggest thing, is driving on pump or E85 mix, and then having a tiny methanol cell that just comes on automatically at like 10 pounds and blends. And then you're not using... A KSR has shown a lot about that, where they do the blend cars. And then what's nice is they have a methanol tank that they use like 5 gallons all week.
Yeah.
Because it's literally a 7-second car comes on the meth only at like 10 pounds. they're only using meth for like 6 seconds every
Yeah.
other hit. So
Yeah.
these are good ones if you can go through these last ones. Worst car. And the lap belt one makes me laugh because that's like the crusty old dudes thing that I get wound up on, because they have a friend, or they have a Nova, so they've stretched the rule to allow a lap belt forever. But then if you have a new GTR that goes a 970 and almost stock trim, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Obviously, a GTR is way safer than a 72 Nova, but that's just me being a jerk again.
Yep. Personal car. My daily driver is a 2013 Tahoe, and it's got 33, so I doubt it does a burnout. It's got traction control and all that bullshit on it.
Worst car, I think you said, was a C6.
Yeah, that was it was fun to like build. It was a cool car to see done. It's running right now. I think he's been in the 8s on it, so that might be one of the quicker ones. Let me see, race car seats. In the shop car, we have it's a Kirky, but it's a full containment Kirky. So yeah, I was reading someone slap the wall with their car, get a good contact, when you come across all the way across and slap it hard, and he broke ribs because he had a normal Kirky, and the normal Kirky just hits right on your sides.
Yep, it's right there under your shoulder.
Yeah, so this full containment. This full containment seat, it's got shoulder pads also, so it limits your side to side.
It's like a rally style. Does it have the thumb holes? You ever see those?
I don't think it has thumb holes.
I never understood what that was until I saw a guy wreck, because you can just bust your arms and they go flailing. Yeah. So you just grab the seat.
Yeah.
Because the seat's the most anchored thing ever.
Yeah. That's why they have those arm restraints.
Yeah, like Cletus wears those. So you can't shove them out of the vehicle, but yeah.
Yeah.
You think you can hold your arms when you're pulling 5 Gs in an accident, but you cannot. I backed my one Fairmont broke an axle, and it spun me out at like 75 miles an hour and backed me into something. And I even was thinking to myself, there were sparks showering past my door and window. It was at night. So it was the rear was on the ground, and it was just orange, like I was re-entering the atmosphere backwards. Orange, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna hit something. I'm just not gonna glide forever. So I pulled up on the wheel to like get some bracing space. I don't know. I'm like, it's not gonna help anyway, but hopefully I don't get ejected, even though I have my belts on. And then I hit something. It was a grass embankment, and then I was actually able to drive away because I welded the diff, so the other side still worked. But I had black and blues from my forearms to almost my shoulders from pulling, and then I bent the steering wheel and the seat and everything. But yeah, I was like, I wasn't even that fast by the time I hit something, but I like almost ripped my muscles out of my arms trying to hold this steering wheel,
Yeah.
Red onions or yellow onions?
Ooh, that depends on the recipe.
Show me your current build. Well, you did. You walked over there and showed it off.
Yeah. You guys can check out our YouTube channel if you're interested.
Well, that shows all. Yeah. I was trying to catch up on that too, but
yeah, we're trying to show everything we're doing on it. So
now but I have something to watch now instead of like weird rabbit hole videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Travis Pastrana or Bucky Lassick video where he's rolling the rally car. He let his hands go out the window. Then his subconscious sticked in and he pulled his arms to his chest. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure when you hit something, they just go out, and then you're like...
Yeah. Yeah, uh-oh.
You can tell those guys that at least have crashed a few times or have good training. They go right for the things in the seat.
Yeah. Dale said, can I mount my coilover unit vertical in front of the axle instead of behind the axle like most are mounted? You can. There's a reason why people put them behind the axle. There's leverage things that come into play when you put it in front.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, you
Or
just
you're
don't
making
see
it
it.
hard for yourself, right? You can do it
Yeah,
for sure, but it's like I like laughing at Dodge pickups. I feel like have the worst rear suspension because I see them bouncing and doing dumb shit on the highway, and the people are
yeah,
like trying to control them. But I think it's someone told me it's because the shocks are at like a terrible angle.
yeah.
Is that
I could
true?
see that. I don't know on Dodges. I mean, even like a GM truck, they're at weird. You got shocks pointing weird ways and
45-degree
whatnot.
angles, and then one
Yeah,
is forward and one is backwards. I don't know why. Maybe it's to try to stop the rear from wiggling. I don't know.
yeah. 2013 Tahoe lift reader. That is true.
Actually, if
Hey,
you look up, I had Robert Young Force Performance on, and he calls it the boost hoe because he has a Tahoe with like 300,000 on it that he put a
yeah,
turbo on. It makes like 700 plus rear wheel now.
I got 130,000 on my Tahoe and still got original lifters, so I'm probably on
Well,
borrowed
that's
time.
no
But
mileage at all. That's garbage.
yeah,
All the I only pull or buy motors that have a 250,000 on them. I don't trust anything else, to be honest. If it lasted that long, it is good for. It's ready for it.
uh-huh. We do have AC in our shop. 100%. We have AC.
I see all the insulation in your ceiling, so yeah, I figured.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially, how are you bent over sideways, upside down with a welder welding hot tubes without AC? You hate your life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Before I did this full time, I worked at a machine shop, and there's no AC, the minimal heat. So when I got this shop, it was like that was 100% needed. I was like, I have to have AC, and it's like a balmy 72 with no humidity in here right now.
Nice.
Yeah, we keep a few dehumidifiers to keep the metal from rusting in here, so like 30% humidity and 72.
I'm such a I'm so used to from working in data centers for the last 16 years. I have to be cold or else I'm miserable. Like
Yeah,
my skin, like I'm not comfortable unless my skin is cold. Like if you touch me,
yeah,
I'm like a Coke can
yeah.
because in the data centers, the floor, we have what's called a crack unit, and what it does is it's an air handler with a chiller. So there's a giant chiller somewhere else, and then it pumps extremely cold coolant, and then it's like a swamp cooler almost, but
Yeah,
it circulates the air. So there's a hot aisle and a cold aisle in data centers when you have
yeah.
cabinets. So the AC comes up through the floor. So it's pumping, the
Oh,
crack unit is taking hot air out of the ceiling and pumping it through these 6 or 7 radiators and like 50-degree air into the floor. So then you can change the floor tiles to change the amount of air conditioning some cabinets get. So some are just
oh,
perforations, some are like big registers for a floor that can shoot it out. So when you're working in a cold aisle, you have 50-degree air blowing up from below on you,
that
which
is
is
wild.
extremely cold because normally you're hitting it or it's going up into your clothes all the time.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
the hot aisle is like making you sweat. So it's I'm just so used to like working in 50-degree air like that
yeah,
if it's a little humid and 70, I'm like, this is garbage. This weather's
yeah,
garbage.
yeah.
Oh yeah, go over any one of those. Potato is hammering them out. That's what he's
Well,
good
I
for.
know. Let's see.
You can
Fastest speed.
you
I'll
can
rattle
always
them off
count
here.
on him at the end of a show. You're like, I need questions, and he's like,
Yeah.
favorite bubblegum. What's your
Uh,
TV show?
Fastest speed, probably like 140, 150 with my red car. Favorite specialized tool. We really like the Milwaukee 1/4 inch. So we don't have any air compressors here. We use all electric, everything. Less bullshit, less airlines running absolutely
I
everywhere.
hate
So
airplanes.
yeah, so we don't have any, we have a tiny one for like filling up tires, and
That's
that's
it.
it.
Valve
Um,
springs.
yeah, so the 1/4 inch Milwaukee, their new die grinder. So we use that with a drum sander to when we're notching tubes to fit tubes. Works great. That's probably the specialized tool that most people don't know about to use it for that. We don't have a Bridgeport because we do not have 3-phase at our shop, which is very limiting. Um, we are maybe going to work on that soon. Just have single phase. So Favorite welder? We have a Miller Dynasty. So I don't. The Dynasty is nice, but I have a AHP from Amazon that I started off 6 years ago, whatever. It's still rocking out in the shop. If you gave me one torch and told me to guess which machine, the only reason I would know is the pre-flow on the torch is there's no pre-flow on the HP, so that's the HP for $700 is about the best welder you can get. Our Dynasty was like 6,000, I think. So I don't know if the price point is quite there for a Dynasty. The Dynasty is nice because we have a warranty with it. So, slowest car that I ever put a cage in. We got cars that still haven't run that we put cages in. Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, well, there's that streetcar or whatever. We went over that at length, and not good for a streetcar. If you're only going to go every now and then, you shouldn't even need one, in my opinion.
This guy said, ever had a board go bad on a Dynasty? So I got a good story about that. So I've had the Dynasty for a year and a half now. I bought it brand new, straight out of the box. Got it hooked up, went to tack a couple things, and like third tack in, I hear it crackling, turn around, it's just white smoke pouring out of it. And this is a brand new, $6,000 TIG welder. So I called Miller that day. I was like, hey, like, what are we, can I use this? Or they're like, no, don't turn that back on. And they immediately sent out a brand new one. So that's kind of the reason you get the warranty for the Dynasty. If you get an AHP from Amazon and that happens, you're kind of out of luck unless you send it back to China. So,
funny story about that is I bought one of those, a Lotus 5000 plasma cutter for like $250 forever ago in like 2012, and I got it and I was so excited to use it. I hooked it up and I went to cut a piece of steel and it made the cut noise and it went pop. And it worked for like a half a second. And I emailed them about it, and it smelled like burnt matches. I'm like, it's done.
Yeah.
I emailed them about it. They sent me a return label, sent me another one, and it has worked. I still have it. It works fine.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
For 9 years now, it has been awesome.
So, yeah. I wish I would have had my facial expression when I turned around and the brand new Dynasty is just like sitting there just rolling smoke. I was like, all right, well, that's not good.
Oh, yeah, he says, I just typed out quick while you were talking. I said we went on at length about it, and basically we agree it's dangerous unless you're extremely strapped, which is dumb because then you can't turn your head to see traffic.
Yeah.
And if you have a funny car cage, you can't barely see anyway. Your vision is severely limited. And then, if you move at all and you bang your head, you almost should have your helmet on. Because even if you're tight, you can still left and right enough to hit that.
Exactly. Yeah. It depends on the car. I guess the cost one's a good one. So $750 is usually, so an 850 takes about 40 hours. A 25.5 is usually 80 to 100 depending on the car. A 25.3 is 120 to 140 depending on the car.
Wow.
So at 850, you're right around 3,500, 4-ish in our area. It might vary for wherever he's at. It's very region based. So that's kind of just our prices. All of our stuff is hourly. We just charge an hourly flat rate on fabrication stuff. So we clock in when we're on the job and clock out, and then we send invoices every week. So that's kind of how we do stuff. I don't like giving out flat prices because every car is different. You could start cutting a floor out and turn into a pile of dust
That's the easiest way to hurt yourself is to give a flat rate or a job price.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting good now, so we can do, we're really close on our estimates, and our quotes now. So most people don't. The only time they get to deal with chassis stuff is if they, get a quote. So that was a good question. Oh, the S10 Blazer thing. Yeah, we got rid of the rear cross member because the shock bar went there. I guess he's talking about the Motion Blazer. Yeah, the shock bar went there, so we cut that out, and that thing weighs like 40 pounds, so that had to go.
Yeah, I'm really curious what my new Edge here weighs once it's done, because it's going to be full interior and AC and everything, but these cars don't weigh a whole lot anyway, and like I said, I've cut so much out in the aluminum motor and everything else. It'll be interesting. I bet even for like a heavy street car with AC, it only weighs like 3,200 pounds.
I would say that's probably pretty close. That the SN95 and the new Edge, they have a little bit more material to them than like a Fox body.
Yes.
So they have some more weight to them, but it's not a lot. All right, what music? We listen to like everything. So whether it's rap, rock, country, it depends on who's connected to the Bluetooth shop. Depends on if someone doesn't like the music, you can usually tell because they'll have their headphones in. Or if it's someone's cutting a car, we usually keep we'll all have headphones in because it's loud. All the walls in here are metal, so it gets noisy. Yeah, I think I didn't see anything else.
Someone asked about building a bike or a bicycle or a motorcycle or cooking or baking or worst. It says best fuck up story. So like, what's your? You get halfway through something and be like, I have to cut all this out.
Man, I really don't have a bad like one. I mean, there's always been stuff that we've put in a spot. The hardest thing with doing, I think, with chassis work is, or even fabrication, you got to plan way ahead. You have to see the car done before it's done. You have to have that vision, and that's what I have a hard time hiring for. There's not a lot of people that have the drive to do this stuff and that want to. It just takes a certain person to do it. You gotta see the car before it's done. You gotta, like I just did headers today for that car, and we have those click together little header building kits. So cool. Yep. It's so helpful, and especially when you get around tight stuff. But like that, it's so open in the front. I just kind of whipped it together. I mean, it only took 4 or 5 hours to build a set of headers. So you kind of have to, planning ahead is key in this stuff, especially if you're building an entire car. If you put something in the wrong spot, then you're gonna cut it out later. So that's kind of, there's always stuff that we're changing and whatnot.
That's why I'm terrible at that stuff, because I have no foresight. I'm not good at planning, and I'm not good at details, and I can't listen. And if you played a game of chess with me, you would laugh, because I cannot think ahead.
Yeah.
That's why it's daunting for me to like start to finish this car almost, because I'm like, I have like the smart wire and everything, all this stuff I never used, and I'm like, oh, how much of it do I want to take over with that? Am I wasting it by not doing everything with that? There's too much configuration. How do I start? I mean, I'm just gonna hit up my buddy Devin that does that professionally and be like, send me a sheet of paper and a base config that you give to most people, and then I'll try to make the best of it. Because what I would do with a car like this is I've stripped it back to where I have like the wires that run the interior. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly all you need. But then I'm like, do I waste a smart wire on 6 powered circuits that I need? Or do I, I'm like, do I take over everything, like the blinkers and everything? But then I'm like, well, that sucks, because I have to find every wire that activates that stuff in the turn stalk and then wire it into the smart wire when I could have just left it go. But whatever.
Yeah. Yep. Sound deadening, getting rid of that. So usually usually most sound deadening, it kind of chips off, but if it doesn't, we have, so those tools that you use to like remove tile, like those little, I don't even know what it's called.
Like an air spatula.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yep.
And it just vibrates back and forth. So those, if you get up underneath it, you can just rock along it.
Oh, an oscillating tool, a
Yeah,
multi-oscillating tool.
that's what it's called. Yeah.
I thought you meant actually like the people have the air tool with a big flat chisel and they go at an angle and wrap tile out. But yeah, you mean, so they make an oscillating tool that rips sound deadening out pretty well?
Yeah, if you just slide it along the metal, it takes it out pretty well, and then we either grind the rest or sand it off.
Notching.
So our cages do require notching. You can do it with a grinder. I mean, that's my first ever cage I did was with just a grinder and a flap disc, and you can get it pretty close. There's we have a nice notcher now, obviously, but I mean, if you're doing one cage, there's no reason to go out and buy a big old notching.
I would say you probably overdo the length, so people have to cut it back because you don't want to give them not enough.
Yeah,
so that's why notching is required. It's like it's within fractions of an inch, and they have to finish it off because if every car is off a little bit, then you have gaps everywhere, and people are pissed.
Yeah, so all our cage kits have an extra inch on each end that you can play with. So, we've thought about doing notched kits before, but if one person puts something in the wrong spot, especially on like a 25.5 or 25.3, then everything else is going to be off. So it's kind of a, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't type deal. So.
It's a Matt should comment on his recent spot on regular car reviews. Well, just watch it. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I know that guy pretty well, so he's always been fascinated. He'll come by the dyno, my dyno, and then I tune at Maple Grove Auto. He's closer to that. He'll stop by and hang out, and he's always just been intrigued by like, I just say no, or I don't care, or I'll quit for like 6 months, or he's like, people have something really nice and they want to throw a bunch of money at me, and I'm like, I don't like your attitude, and you seem like you need a lot of babysitting, and I'm not the person to do that for you. So you're like a high maintenance girlfriend that I don't want. So no, go to someone that can hold your hand. Not that it's a bad thing. Some people want to pay money and have their hand held, but I can't. I won't do that for you. So you should find somebody that will. But yeah, he's always been fascinated where I'm just like, I don't care to, I don't want to.
Well, my favorite hobby besides I'm pretty into the whole car thing. I mean, we're out here this weekend. My buddy's working on his car. I'm working on the shop car. We do go camping and stuff like that, and do some trails with the Tahoe. So that's I guess that'd be hobby. Right now, it's crunch time for Rocky Mountain Race Week, so we're not going to be we're going to Colorado in August, so I guess that's kind of hobby. Our hourly rate's $97.50 an hour. So I don't know what's your guys' chassis fabrication rate out there.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
I can tell you when. Well, I probably shouldn't say it because the people that are going to do my stuff are friends of mine, and I help them and they help me. So I can't give my rate is not anybody else's rate, and it's not fair because I help them with things and they're going to help me with that. I didn't ask them to give me a deal, but they said they would. So I wasn't like, hey, I don't want to pay you really much, so
Yeah. It's the hourly rate's about on par for what everyone is. I know out in like California, hourly rate's like $140 an hour, but that's just because it's California.
So. It's expensive to be there, so it'd just be like probably near New York City. It's probably very expensive to have a cage done because cost of living is through the roof. And then if you get chassis work done in Georgia, it's probably pretty cheap because living there is pretty cheap. So
I don't have any cage that would be in a Datsun. That would be a custom cage type deal. Yeah, I guess if you hammered the cage hard enough, you could get it in there. You can't just hammer it in place. Let's see. I don't know what else there is. That's about, I don't see any other questions.
What's your opinions on new Mopar products? Yeah, it'll be actually nice to quit early. We'll be just under 3 hours and I can go to bed. That'll be incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fine with me. I don't have any opinions on I'm not a big Mopar guy. I'm more of a Ford person than I am a Mopar person. And I'm not a huge Ford. I mean, small block Fords are cool.
They sound amazing.
Yeah, they can be built well.
People are always like, "Oh, Ford is best for like having a." Like my buddy Devin loves Fords, but he has like 3,000 horsepower methanol cars. You know, I'm like at that price point. Literally anything will. Everything's expensive and everything. Nothing that goes on that resembles anything of a small block Ford. Like take a stock 5-liter valve cover and put it on that thing. No.
Yeah.
Take a stock water pump from like a 96 Ford Explorer and put it on that. No. Yeah. So that's the summary. Because stock LS stuff, well, if people don't get too dumb, like the stuff I build, you can go to AutoZone and get an alternator and stuff like that. That's why I like building them. People are missing that point. Because I used to build small block Fords with my friend, and we would split the blocks, 3 times a summer. And like timing chain cover was slightly different on one, and lifters were different on one, and one had a Mexican block, and everything was different. And the distributor, like, it was literally such a pain in the ass. Like, stuff would not fit. And what's funny is, like, an LS motor, you're like, I have a cylinder head from this, and an oil pan from this, and a pickup tube from this, and intake from a car. And there's no water jackets in the intake. You have 300,000 mile intake gaskets that still seal. Like, it's stupid as hell. It's dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to build something like, I wouldn't mind building like a big block Chevy, or like even a small block Ford would be cool to put in something. But LS is like Legos. You can just slap it together and you don't have to worry. I got the shop car ordered. I mean, it's just an L33. It's just over there, but it took me all of a day to put together with new bearings and stuff, and it's done.
It's tough to explain it to people how like all the gaskets are reusable. They're all the like aluminum graphite with the O-ring, and everything's ambidextrous. One head can go on the other. The intake can get flipped. Like you don't have to do anything. And then the exhaust manifolds, however people just designed it, like up and forward, down and back, down and forward, down and like like a friend of mine built like a Gen 3 Hemi car, and like you're totally screwed on stuff. Like the oil drain backs aren't the same, the cylinder head doesn't bolt up the same, like nothing. You're totally screwed. Like other than that, people are like, do you want more questions? Not really.
I see my wife is on here.
Oh yeah,
Marissa Moore. She said, "Is your ice cream melted?"
Oh, that's a good question.
It probably is melted because I haven't even taken it.
Oh no!
Actually, it's not. Like,
wow,
it is still somewhat together. That's funny.
Well, I guess we'll call it under 3 hours. That's exciting. I know some people are going to be happy that they can listen to it in less than a day, probably.
Yeah. I'm gonna go eat some ice cream. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. You better do that. So, well, thanks for being on.
Yep.
And I hope everybody else had fun and learned something, and I didn't talk more than you over this time. That's always my goal. Is part of this is like a therapy thing for me to listen better.
Yeah. I feel like that's how now that I've started making like YouTube videos and stuff, you kind of have to ramble. You kind of have to just like go on, and explain things.
Yeah, which I already did fairly well, so I don't mind. That's why I guess I'm okay at it, because I can just... And then I used to make shorter videos where I didn't talk, and then people are like, I wish you would say more. And then I'm like, I'm saying way too much. And people are like, man, this video is so filled with stuff I didn't know or consider, and I learned so much. I'm like, I was just being an ass to myself for 20 minutes. Like, I was talking down to myself. They're like, no, I learned so much. I'm like, Okay. I feel like
Whatever.
early YouTube, people wanted extremely short videos. And
Yeah.
then it's been going up and down. But yeah, the longer ones I make, people are like, man, I love these longer episodes. And I'm like, I thought people would hate this. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It was pretty good. The other episodes are good.
Yeah. This guy says, I always liked your long videos. I think like when even if I'm bolting an intake on, I spew so much facts that people don't know, or at least like things that
Yeah.
I failed on that they're like, oh, I shouldn't do that because he said all this. I just,
Yeah.
it's all in here. So I'm like, I don't, my wife says it all the time. Like, I don't know why. She's like, I hear enough of you. I don't know why all these other people.
Yeah. Anthony Samsel said, "Hurry up so I can be loud in the shop." He's waiting to put windows in his car.
Yeah, that's what Send It Here says, knowledge dumps. My wife calls it knowledge bombs. She's like, you'll just bomb people. Their eyes glaze over and they just get bombed.
Yeah, but they can go back and watch it over and over again.
No, if I see someone in person and they ask something, and I start explaining, and they're like, "Oh, I'm following. Go ahead." And then I'm like, and they're like, "Whoa!" They go on tilt. They're out. Tilt. I can see it, so I'm like, "Okay, we're done."
That's funny.
All right. Well, have a good one, and thanks for being on and everything else. So, everybody, check out his YouTube channel. I believe I put it all in. I think so, yeah. The pre-description file here. If not, I always ask people to blast me in the comments, and then I'll edit the description, and it'll be there.
Yeah. Yep, that works.
All right. Well, thanks for being on, and
all right.
Have a good night.
Yep, see ya.
Yep, bye.